The courtroom went silent as Selena Ashford signed the final page. Across the polished table, Ethan Vale leaned back in his $1,000 suit, smirking like a man who'd just conquered the world. His attorney whispered congratulations. His fiancée squeezed his hand. They thought they'd destroyed her, the quiet woman in the plain coat, walking away with almost nothing while Ethan kept his empire intact. But what none of them knew, what would shatter Ethan's world in exactly 7 days, was that the broken woman they were pitching pennies at was worth $3 billion, and she'd just made sure he could never touch a single cent of it. Before we dive into this story, if you're enjoying it, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now let's get into it. The Henderson County Courthouse smelled like old wood and stale coffee. Selena had been sitting in courtroom 4B for 3 hours, watching her marriage get dissected like a biology project. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in that greenish tint that made everyone look slightly sick. Which was fitting because she felt sick. Not from loss, she'd mourned this marriage months ago, but from the performance she had to maintain. Ethan sat 15 feet away, but it might as well have been a mile. He'd positioned himself at the far end of the conference table, his new fiancée Brittany perched beside him like a decorator's accent piece. Everything about Brittany screamed expensive, the kind of expensive that came from other people's money. Her Cartier bracelet caught the light every time she moved her wrist, which she did often, making sure everyone saw it. Her blonde hair was the exact shade that required a colorist charging $300 an hour. Even her sympathy face looked professionally done. Ethan had worn his navy Tom Ford suit, the one he'd bought last spring when the firm had closed that big deal. Selena remembered because she'd been with him when he'd ordered it, back when he still occasionally pretended she mattered. The tailor had fussed over the shoulders while Ethan had talked on his phone, barely acknowledging her presence. She should have seen it then. Hell, she had seen it. She just hadn't wanted to believe it. "Mrs. Ashford, do you understand the terms as presented?" Judge Morrison's voice cut through her thoughts. He was in his 60s, with gray hair and the patient expression of someone who'd seen 1,000 divorces and expected to see 1,000 more. He probably saw Selena as just another discarded wife, too tired or too scared to fight back. Perfect. "Yes, Your Honor." Selena kept her voice soft, almost defeated. She'd practiced this tone for weeks, not broken enough to seem unstable, but weak enough to seem beaten. Ethan's attorney, Marcus Chen, shuffled his papers with barely concealed satisfaction. Marcus was good at his job, which made him dangerous. He was the kind of lawyer who wore expensive watches and cheap wedding rings. Priorities clear. He'd probably coached Ethan through every move of this divorce, teaching him how to hide assets, how to make Selena look unreasonable if she fought back, how to position himself as the victim of a gold-digging ex. Too bad they were playing checkers while Selena had a chessboard. "You're agreeing to waive any claim to Vale Financial Group and all associated assets, correct?" Marcus asked, his pen hovering over the document like he couldn't quite believe she was this stupid. "Correct." Across the table, Ethan leaned over to whisper something to Brittany. She giggled, in a courtroom during divorce proceedings. Selena watched them through her peripheral vision, keeping her face neutral. Ethan looked like a man who'd won the lottery. His shoulders were relaxed, his smile was genuine. He probably thought this was the best day of his life. "Wait a week," she thought. "Just wait." "And you accept the settlement amount of $85,000 as full and complete compensation for your contributions to the marriage?" $85,000. Ethan probably spent more than that on his car. Hell, he'd spent more than that on the engagement ring currently weighing down Brittany's left hand. The ring was gaudy, a 4-carat monstrosity that screamed insecurity louder than any words could. "I accept," Selena said. Her own attorney, Patricia Reeves, shifted uncomfortably beside her. Patricia was a family friend, a good lawyer, but not great. Selena had chosen her specifically because she needed someone who wouldn't ask too many questions, who would accept Selena's strange requests without pushing back. Patricia had argued for more money, more assets, more everything, but only half-heartedly, because Selena had made it clear she just wanted this over. "Selena, are you sure?" Patricia whispered, leaning close. "We can still fight this. That settlement is insulting." "I'm sure." Selena put her hand over Patricia's, squeezed once. "I just want to move on." Patricia sighed but nodded. She probably thought Selina was making a mistake born from exhaustion or emotional damage. She probably felt sorry for her client, this tired woman in a JCPenney coat who was letting her ex-husband walk all over her. Everyone in this room felt sorry for her. Even Judge Morrison had that pitying look in his eyes, like he wanted to pull her aside and tell her she was worth more than this. They had no idea. Mr. Vale, Judge Morrison turned his attention to Ethan. You agree to these terms? You understand this is a complete financial separation? Mrs. Ashford will have no claim to any of your current or future assets, and you'll have no claim to any of hers? Absolutely, Your Honor. Ethan's voice was confident, almost cheerful. I think this is the best outcome for everyone. Clean break, no lingering entanglements. No lingering entanglements. Selina almost laughed. That's exactly what she'd counted on. The mutual waiver was the crown jewel of this agreement, the clause that Ethan's attorney had insisted on, thinking they were protecting Ethan's fortune from a grasping ex-wife. What they'd actually done was build an airtight legal wall that would prevent Ethan from ever touching the fortune he didn't know existed. Marcus slid the final documents across the table. If you'll both sign here, here, and initial here, we can wrap this up. Selina picked up the pen. It was cheap plastic, probably from a bulk pack at Staples. Strange how the moment that would change everything came down to a $3 pen and some paper. She signed her name in 3 places. Her signature looked shaky, uncertain. She'd practiced that too. Ethan grabbed his own pen, a Mont Blanc, because of course it was, and scrawled his signature with flourish. He was practically glowing. Next to him, Brittany was already tapping on her phone, probably updating her Instagram with some cryptic post about new beginnings or living your truth or whatever bullshit influencers posted these days. Well, Judge Morrison closed the file folder with a soft thump. That concludes these proceedings. You're officially divorced. I hope you both find happiness moving forward. Ethan stood immediately, already reaching for Brittany's hand. Thank you, Your Honor. I'm sure we will. Selina gathered her papers slowly, methodically. She could feel their eyes on her. Ethan, Brittany, Marcus, all of them waiting to see if she'd cry or make a scene or do something that would confirm their narrative of the broken, bitter ex-wife. Instead, she stood, smoothed her coat, and picked up her worn leather bag. The bag had been her grandmother's. It was probably older than Brittany. Selina, Ethan's voice stopped her halfway to the door. She turned, and for just a second, she let herself really look at him. Ethan Vale had been handsome once, in that clean-cut, ambitious way that attracted venture capital and romantic comedies. Square jaw, good haircut, eyes that crinkled when he smiled. She'd fallen for those eyes 7 years ago at a charity fundraiser. He'd been a single father with a 6-year-old daughter and dreams of building something that mattered. She'd been a graduate student finishing her MBA, still grieving her grandfather, trying to figure out what to do with her life. They'd made sense then. Or she'd thought they did. Now, looking at him in his expensive suit with his expensive fiancé and his expensive watch, all she saw was a stranger. A stranger who'd gotten greedy, gotten careless, and was about to learn the most expensive lesson of his life. I hope you find what you're looking for, he said. The condescension dripped from every word. Behind him, Brittany was trying not to smirk. Selina smiled. Not a big smile. Just a small, quiet curve of her lips. I already have. She left before he could respond. The courthouse hallway was nearly empty. Her heels, sensible, low, the kind of shoes a woman wore when she couldn't afford better, clicked against the marble floor. She could hear Ethan and his entourage behind her, their voices carrying in the cavernous space. Did you see her face? That was Marcus. She looked like someone had died. I almost feel bad, Brittany said, though her tone suggested she felt nothing of the sort. Do you think she'll be okay? She'll be fine, Ethan replied. Selina's tougher than she looks. She'll find some other guy to take care of her. Selina kept walking. Let them think what they wanted. In exactly 7 days, none of their opinions would matter. She pushed through the courthouse doors into the Chicago afternoon. November wind hit her face, sharp and cold. The city stretched out around her, buildings stabbing at gray clouds, cars honking, people hurrying past with their collars turned up against the weather. She'd lived here for 5 years. It had never quite felt like home. Her car was parked 2 blocks away. She'd deliberately chosen a spot far from the courthouse, not wanting to risk running into Ethan in the parking garage. The walk gave her time to think, to decompress, to let the mask slip just a little. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, saw the name on the screen. James Okoye. "It's done," she said without preamble. "He signed everything?" James's voice was warm, professional, tinged with the slight Nigerian accent he'd never quite lost despite 20 years in the States. James was her chief legal counsel at Ashford Global Holdings, though no one in that courtroom would have known that. As far as public records showed, Selina Ashford had no connection to the multi-billion-dollar investment empire operating out of New York, London, and Singapore. Every page, the waivers ironclad. Then he's locked out. Forever. James sounded satisfied. "How are you feeling?" Selina reached her car, a 2015 Honda Civic with a dent in the rear bumper and a cracked taillight. She'd bought it specifically for this role, the struggling ex-wife act. Her real cars were in a private garage under a corporate name Ethan would never trace. "I feel tired," she admitted, unlocking the door, "and ready for this to be over. One more week, then we move." "One more week," she agreed. She ended the call and sat in the car for a moment, letting the silence wrap around her. Through the windshield, she could see a young couple walking past, holding hands, laughing about something. They looked happy, uncomplicated. Selina had been that happy once, or thought she had. Her marriage to Ethan hadn't been some grand romance for the ages, but it had been real, at least at first. He'd been building his financial firm from scratch, working 18-hour days, taking risks that made her nervous, but also made her admire his drive. She'd loved his ambition, loved how he'd talk about making a difference, about creating something meaningful. And then there was Maya, Ethan's daughter from his first marriage, though calling it a marriage was generous. Maya's mother had gotten pregnant after a brief relationship, given birth, and then decided motherhood wasn't for her. She'd signed away her parental rights when Maya was 8 months old and disappeared to backpack through Europe. Last anyone heard, she was teaching yoga in Portugal, so Ethan had raised Maya alone. And when Selina met them, Maya was 6 years old and desperately needed a mother figure. Selina had fallen for that little girl almost as fast as she'd fallen for Ethan. Maya had been shy at first, testing boundaries, making sure this new woman wasn't going to disappear like her biological mother had. But Selina had stayed. She'd braided Maya's hair for dance recitals, helped with homework, attended parent-teacher conferences, held her when she cried about kids at school who made fun of her for not having a real mom. Selina had loved that child with everything she had, and then Ethan had destroyed it all. The first affair had been with an associate at his firm, Tiffany. Something, Selina couldn't remember her last name. She'd found out through a credit card statement a charge at a hotel in Boston when Ethan was supposedly at a conference alone. When confronted, he'd cried. Actually cried. Promised it was a mistake, that he'd been under so much stress that Selina was the only woman he truly loved. She'd believed him, or wanted to. The second affair was with a client, Veronica, a divorced hedge fund manager with more money than sense. That one had lasted 3 months before Selina found texts on Ethan's phone. Again, tears. Again, promises. She'd stopped believing him after that, started sleeping in the guest room, started making plans. Then she'd discovered something that changed everything. Her grandfather had died 2 years into her marriage to Ethan. Harold Ashford had been a quiet man, a mechanical engineer who'd made his fortune in patents, small, unglamorous patents for industrial equipment that didn't make headlines but made money. Lots of money. Selina had known her grandfather was comfortable. She hadn't known he was rich. Not until the lawyers had shown up with documents revealing a network of trusts, shell companies, and investment vehicles worth nearly $400 million. And he'd left all of it to her. The inheritance came with conditions. It couldn't be accessed until she turned 30. It had to be managed by the trustees he'd appointed until she demonstrated financial maturity and business acumen. And most importantly, it was structured in a way that made it nearly invisible to anyone not specifically looking for it. Ethan had no idea. He'd been at the funeral, of course, playing the supportive husband. But the real meetings had happened later, in private, with lawyers who specialized in discretion. They'd explained the structure, the conditions, the responsibilities. And they'd advised her to keep it quiet, at least until she understood what she was dealing with. So she had. For 2 years, while Ethan cheated and lied and slowly destroyed their marriage, Selena had been learning, studying, building. She'd taken online courses in corporate finance and investment strategy, met with the trustees every month, asking questions, pushing boundaries, proving she could handle the responsibility. On her 30th birthday 6 months ago, full control had transferred to her, $400 million. Hers to invest, grow, protect. She'd gotten to work. With James's help, she'd found him through a referral from one of her grandfather's old business partners. She'd restructured everything, created Ashford Global Holdings as an umbrella corporation, bought into undervalued companies, made aggressive but calculated investments in tech, real estate, green energy. In 6 months, she'd turned $400 million into $3 billion, and Ethan had noticed none of it. He'd been too busy building his own empire. Vale Financial Group had started as a boutique investment firm, but Ethan had big dreams. He wanted to compete with the major players, manage billions, make a name for himself on Wall Street. The problem was he didn't have the patience for slow growth, so he'd cut corners, took on debt the firm couldn't sustain, made promises to investors that required unrealistic returns, started using client money for operational expenses, always planning to pay it back, always sure the next big deal would cover everything. Selena had discovered the extent of it 3 months ago. She'd hired a forensic accountant, quietly, through layers of corporate anonymity, to examine Vale Financial Group. What they'd found was catastrophic. The firm was over-leveraged by nearly $200 million. Client accounts had been raided to cover operating costs. Several investments were pure fantasy, Ponzi schemes dressed up in financial jargon. Ethan's empire was a house of cards built on fraud and borrowed time, and Selena had decided to be the wind that knocked it down. But carefully, methodically. She couldn't just expose him. That would lead to questions about how she'd obtained the information, might reveal her own resources too early. She needed him to destroy himself, and she needed to be positioned to catch the pieces when he fell. Hence the divorce. Hence the settlement that looked pathetic but was actually perfect. Hence the mutual waiver that would ensure Ethan could never claim she'd known about his crimes, never argue that her wealth was somehow marital property he deserved a share of. The divorce made her untouchable. Selena started the car. The engine coughed before turning over. She'd been meaning to get that looked at, but there hadn't been time. She pulled out of the parking spot and into traffic, heading north toward the small apartment she'd been renting in Lincoln Park. It was a studio, barely 600 square feet, with a Murphy bed and a kitchenette that could charitably be called cozy. She'd been living there for 4 months, ever since moving out of the house she'd shared with Ethan. The house. God, she missed that house. Not for itself, it was too modern, too much glass and sharp angles for her taste, but for what it had represented. Stability, family, a place where Maya could grow up safe and loved. Maya. The thought of her hit like it always did, a sharp pain right in the center of her chest. Selena had fought for custody, or tried to. But Ethan had better lawyers, more money, or so everyone thought, and the courts favored biological parents. Plus, Maya was 12 now, old enough to have a say, and Ethan had poisoned her against Selena. Convinced her that Selena was leaving because she didn't love them anymore, that she was being selfish, that everything was her fault. The custody agreement gave Ethan primary custody with Selena getting alternating weekends. 2 weekends a month with the girl she'd raised for 6 years. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But Selena had been forced to accept it, forced to watch Maya pull away, forced to endure the cold silences and one-word answers during their court-mandated visits. Another thing Ethan would answer for. Oats. The apartment building was shabby in the way that only older Chicago buildings could be, once grand, now just tired. Selena parked in the cramped lot behind the building and took the stairs to the 3rd floor. Her neighbors were a mix of students, young couples, and elderly people who'd been there for decades. No one paid much attention to the quiet woman in 3C who kept to herself. Inside, the apartment looked exactly as she'd left it that morning. Murphy bed folded into the wall. Small table with 2 chairs. A couch that had come with the furnished rental and had probably seen better days in the Clinton administration. 1 window overlooking the alley. It was depressing, deliberately so. This was the life Ethan and his lawyers thought they'd condemned her to, scraping by on her settlement, working some menial job, fading into obscurity. Selena dropped her bag on the table and went to the window. 3 floors down, she could see a dumpster and the back wall of a restaurant. Glamorous. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Chen Wei, her CFO. Board meeting confirmed for next Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All materials ready for review. Next Friday. The day after Ethan's engagement party. The day everything would change. Selena typed back. Confirmed? I'll be there. She set her phone down and finally let herself smile. A real smile this time. Not the weak, defeated thing she'd worn in court. 7 days. That's all she had to wait. 7 days of playing the sad ex-wife, living in this terrible apartment, driving her dented Honda, pretending she'd lost. Then the mask would come off. She thought about Ethan's face in the courtroom, that smug satisfaction, the way he'd whispered to Brittany, making her giggle, the casual cruelty of it all. He thought he'd won, thought he'd gotten away with everything. The affairs, the lies, the financial crimes, the way he'd turned Maya against her. He had no idea what was coming. Selena walked to her closet and pulled out a garment bag. Inside was the dress she'd wear to the engagement party. She'd bought it last week from a vintage shop in Wicker Park. Emerald green silk, elegant but understated. The kind of dress that whispered money without screaming it. She wouldn't look like defeated Selena Ashford from the courtroom. She'd look like the woman she actually was. The youngest female CEO of a multi-billion-dollar global investment firm. A woman who'd taken her grandfather's legacy and tripled it in 6 months. A woman who was about to buy her ex-husband's company out from under him and expose his crimes to the world. She hung the dress back up carefully. One more week of being invisible. One more week of letting them think they'd won. Then she'd show them what power actually looked like. Selena made herself dinner, instant ramen, because even though she could afford to eat at the finest restaurants in the world, she had a role to maintain and you never knew who might see you. She ate standing at the counter, scrolling through her phone, checking the news. Vail Financial Group had announced a major partnership earlier that day. Some tech startup looking for investors. Ethan was quoted in the press release, talking about innovation and strategic growth and all the buzzwords that made investors feel smart. What the press release didn't mention was that the tech startup was another house of cards, inflated valuations based on promises rather than performance. What it also didn't mention was that Ethan had invested heavily using client money he didn't have permission to touch. The house of cards was getting taller, which meant the fall would be that much harder. Selena's phone rang. She looked at the screen, saw Patricia's name. "Hey," she answered. "Are you okay?" Patricia's voice was full of concern. "You left pretty quickly today." "I'm fine, just tired." "Selena, I have to ask again. Are you sure about that settlement? We could file a motion to—" "I'm sure." Selena kept her voice gentle but firm. "I know it seems small, but I just want to move on. The money doesn't matter to me." She could almost hear Patricia shaking her head. "Well, if you change your mind in the next 60 days, we have some options. After that, the waiver makes it almost impossible." "I won't change my mind." They talked for a few more minutes, Patricia updating her on the timeline for the final paperwork, making sure Selena knew her rights regarding the settlement payment, offering one last time to fight for more. Selena declined politely and hung up. Patricia meant well. She genuinely believed she was watching a woman make a huge mistake, watching her walk away from financial security out of exhaustion or fear or broken spirit. In a week, Patricia would get the shock of her life. Selena finished her ramen and washed the bowl. Her phone buzzed with another text, this one from a number she didn't recognize. "Congratulations on your fresh start. Can't wait to celebrate with E this weekend. B. Brittany." Of course, rubbing salt in the wound, making sure Selena knew she'd been replaced, that she was forgotten, that life was moving on without her. Selena deleted the text without responding. Let Brittany have her moment. Let her enjoy the engagement party, the attention, the feeling of having won. In 7 days, she'd learn what it felt like to be engaged to a man with nothing. The evening dragged on. Selena tried to read but couldn't focus, tried to watch TV but nothing held her interest. Finally, she gave up and went to bed early, pulling out the Murphy bed and climbing under the thin covers. Sleep didn't come easily. She kept replaying the day, Ethan's smirk, Brittany's giggle, Marcus's barely concealed triumph, the way Judge Morrison had looked at her with pity. The sound of Ethan's Mont Blanc pen scratching across paper, signing away any claim to her fortune without even knowing it existed. She'd worked so hard to get to this point. 6 months of building her company in secret. 4 months of investigating Ethan's firm, gathering evidence, building a case. 3 months of planning the divorce, figuring out the exact settlement amount that would seem real without being too much, crafting the waiver language that would protect her forever. And now, just 7 days left. 7 days until the engagement party. 7 days until Ethan's world imploded. Selena stared at the ceiling, watching shadows move across it from car headlights on the street below. She thought about her grandfather. Wondered what he'd think of all this. Harold Ashford had been a quiet man, religious about his work, but not particularly flashy about his success. He'd lived in the same modest house for 40 years, driven the same car for 20. When he died, people had been shocked to learn how much he was worth. He'd taught Selena about patience, about building slowly and carefully, about the power of compound interest and strategic thinking. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful, he'd told her once, when she was maybe 16 or 17. They'd been at some business function, watching a CEO hold court, boasting about his company's success. 6 months later, that CEO's company had filed for bankruptcy. Real power is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. Selena had never forgotten that, and she'd built her entire strategy around it. While Ethan had been loud, spending money he didn't have, making promises he couldn't keep, flaunting success that was mostly illusion, Selena had been quiet, building real wealth, creating actual value, positioning herself for a move that would change everything. Her grandfather would have been proud, or she hoped he would. Eventually, exhaustion won and she drifted off to sleep. She dreamed of the courtroom, but in the dream, when she signed the papers, they burst into flames. And when she looked up, Ethan was gone. The whole room was empty except for her and a little girl with dark hair and her mother's eyes. Maya. "Are you coming back?" Dream Maya asked. "I never left," Selena tried to say, but no sound came out. She woke up with tears on her face and her heart pounding. 3 a.m., the worst hour, when everything feels impossible and hope seems like a luxury you can't afford. Selena got up, splashed water on her face, made herself tea she didn't want, stood at the window looking out at the empty alley. This was the part they didn't show in revenge stories. The quiet moments, the doubt, the nights when you questioned whether any of it was worth it, whether you should just take your $3 billion and disappear, start fresh somewhere Ethan could never find you. But then she thought about his face in court, his arrogance, his certainty that he'd won. She thought about the investors whose money he'd stolen, the employees who'd lose their jobs when his firm collapsed, the clients who'd trusted him. She thought about Maya, poisoned against the woman who'd loved her like a daughter, and she knew she couldn't walk away. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. It was about making sure Ethan faced consequences for once in his privileged life. It was about protecting other people from becoming his victims. Selena finished her tea and went back to bed. 7 days. She could make it 7 more days. The next morning, she woke up to her alarm at 6 a.m. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Expected to see the bedroom she'd shared with Ethan, the big windows overlooking the garden, the expensive sheets he'd insisted on buying. Then reality crashed back. Studio apartment, Murphy bed, divorce finalized yesterday. She got up and went through her routine, shower, coffee. Dressed in jeans and a sweater, the kind of casual, slightly worn clothes a woman on a tight budget would wear. She'd gotten good at this costume, this performance of being someone she wasn't. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize and 1 voicemail. She played it while making toast. "Ms. Ashford, this is Derek from Lincoln Property Management. We wanted to follow up on your rental application for the apartment on Halstead. We're ready to move forward if you are, but we'll need first month, last month, and security deposit by Friday. Give us a call back." The apartment on Halstead. Right. She'd applied for a cheaper place, something even more run-down than where she was now, part of maintaining the illusion. She'd have to call them back, decline, make up some excuse about not having the money ready yet. All these little details, these tiny lies that added up to one big deception. Her phone rang again. This time she recognized the number. Maya. Selena's heart jumped. Maya never called. Their communication was mostly through Ethan, terse messages about pickup times and schedule changes. Hello? It's me. Maya's voice was flat, 13 years old trying to sound bored. Hi, sweetie. Is everything okay? Dad said I should call you about next weekend. I don't want to come. The words hit like a punch. Selena sat down hard on the couch. What? Why not? Dad's engagement party is Saturday. I want to be there. Of course. The engagement party. Ethan was making sure Maya would be there to see his new perfect family, to cement the narrative that he was the victim who'd moved on while Selena was the villain who'd abandoned them. Maya, that's my weekend with you. It's in the custody agreement. I don't care about the stupid agreement. I want to be at the party. Everyone's going to be there, and Dad said I could help Brittany with— I miss you, Selena interrupted. Her voice cracked despite her best efforts to keep it steady. I haven't seen you in 3 weeks. Please. Silence on the other end, then, you're the one who left. That's not— Maya, it's complicated. When you're older, I can explain— whatever. Dad says if you really cared about me, you wouldn't make this difficult. Put your father on the phone. He's not here, he's at work. I'm calling from my cell. Selena closed her eyes. 13 years old and already a weapon in Ethan's arsenal. It wasn't Maya's fault. She didn't understand what was really happening, didn't know about the affairs or the lies or the money her father was stealing. She just knew that the woman she'd called Mom for 6 years had suddenly moved out, and her father was painting himself as the abandoned, heartbroken single parent. I'm not trying to make things difficult, Selena said carefully, but I do want to see you. We could go to that bookstore you like, or I have to go. Can you please just let me skip this weekend? Please? The please broke her. Maya so rarely asked for anything nicely anymore. It was all demands and attitude and walls Selena couldn't climb. Okay, she heard herself say. Okay, you can stay with your dad. Really? Really. But Maya, I love you. That hasn't changed. It's never going to change. Maya didn't respond to that, just said, thanks, and hung up. Selena sat holding her phone for a long time after the call ended. This was the cost. This was what Ethan had taken from her that hurt more than money or houses or anything else. He'd taken her relationship with Maya and twisted it into something ugly. And in 7 days, she was going to burn his entire world down. Maybe that made her a bad person. Maybe revenge was supposed to be beneath her. Maybe she should just take her billions and disappear, and let karma handle Ethan eventually. But she was done being quiet, done being invisible, done letting Ethan win. The engagement party was in 7 days. She had to make it until then. Selena spent the rest of the week in character. She went to a temp agency and registered for office work, sitting through an interview where a woman 15 years younger than her explained how to use Microsoft Word. She bought groceries at discount stores using coupons clipped from the newspaper. She wore her cheap clothes and drove her dented Honda and lived in her depressing studio. And at night, after the performance was done, she worked. Her laptop, a beat-up old thing she kept at the apartment for show, stayed closed. Instead, she used her phone for encrypted communications with James, with Chen Wei, with the team she'd built at Ashford Global Holdings. The final pieces were falling into place. Vail Financial Group was even worse than her forensic accountant had initially reported. Ethan had been cooking the books for at least 2 years, using increasingly creative methods to hide his misappropriation of funds. He'd created shell companies to move money around, falsified account statements, and promised returns he had no hope of delivering. And now he was desperate. His desperation had a name: Manhattan Capital Partners. MCP was supposedly a private equity firm interested in buying Vail Financial Group. They'd approached Ethan 6 weeks ago with a preliminary offer. Market rate for the firm, enough to pay off his debts, and walk away clean. It had seemed like a miracle, because it was. A miracle Selena had engineered. Manhattan Capital Partners didn't exist, or rather, it existed only as a shell company controlled by Ashford Global Holdings. The executives Ethan had been meeting with, the emails he'd been receiving, the term sheets he'd been reviewing, all of it had been carefully crafted by Selena's team. Ethan thought he'd found his salvation. He'd invited MCP's senior partners to his engagement party, planning to announce the deal to his investors and clients. Show everyone that Vail Financial Group was thriving, that his empire was secure. Instead, he was going to watch it collapse in real time. The invitation to the engagement party had arrived at Selena's apartment on Wednesday. Embossed paper, elegant calligraphy, probably cost $50 per card. Ethan Vale and Brittany Monroe request the pleasure of your company at their engagement celebration, Saturday, November 16th, 7 p.m., the Legacy Hall. Below, in smaller text, black tie. No gifts, please. Your presence is enough. No gifts. How generous. How humble. Selena had laughed when she read it. The sheer audacity of the man. She'd RSVP'd, yes, one guest, no +1 needed. Friday arrived. The day before, everything would change. Selena woke up early and went for a run. Not something she normally did, but she had too much energy, too much anxiety. She needed to burn it off before she did something stupid. She ran along the lake, watching the sun come up over the water. Chicago in November was brutal, wind cutting across the lake like knives, temperature hovering just above freezing. But the cold helped, cleared her head. Tonight was her last night as nobody. Tomorrow, she'd walk into that party, and everything would shift. She thought about all the ways this could go wrong. Ethan could refuse to sign the buyout documents. His lawyers could find some loophole. Someone could recognize her, connect her to Ashford Global Holdings before she was ready. But James and his team had been thorough. Everything was airtight, every contingency planned for. As long as she stayed calm and stuck to the script, this would work. It had to work. Back at the apartment, she showered and made coffee. Her phone buzzed with a text from Chen Wei. Everything ready, team in position. Good luck tomorrow. Tomorrow. God. Selena spent the day cleaning her apartment, something to do with her hands, and reviewing the final documents one more time. The buyout agreement. The evidence packages ready to go to the SEC and FBI. The press release her PR team had prepared. At 6 p.m., her phone rang. James. Just wanted to check in, he said. How are you holding up? Terrified, she admitted. Good. Means you're taking this seriously. She could hear the smile in his voice. Selena, you've built something extraordinary. Tomorrow, the world gets to see it. You should be proud. I'll feel proud when it's over. Fair enough? Get some rest tonight. Tomorrow's going to be intense. After they hung up, Selena tried to eat but couldn't manage more than a few bites of soup. Her stomach was tied in knots. She laid out her dress for tomorrow. The emerald green silk. The heels she'd bought to match. Designer, but from 3 seasons ago, so they'd been on sale. Still expensive enough to look the part without being ostentatious. She'd wear her grandmother's pearls, the only piece of jewelry she'd kept from her old life. Everything else had been sold or stored away. Tomorrow night, she'd walk into that ballroom and face Ethan, face Brittany, face everyone who thought she was broken. And she'd show them exactly who she'd become. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of gray sky that made Chicago feel like it was pressing down on you. Selena woke up at 5 a.m., her heart already racing before she'd even opened her eyes. For a moment, she just lay there, staring at the water-stained ceiling of her studio apartment, listening to someone's TV blaring through the thin walls. Today was the day. She sat up, pushed her hair out of her face, and reached for her phone. 3 messages waiting. The first was from James, sent at 4:30 a.m. Team is in position. See you at the venue. The second was from Chen Wei. All documents uploaded to secure server. Press materials ready to deploy on your signal. The third was from a number she didn't recognize. She opened it and felt her stomach drop. Looking forward to seeing you tonight. He mentioned you RSVP'd. Brave of you. B. Brittany. Of course. One last twist of the knife before the party even started. Selena deleted the message and set her phone down. Her hands were shaking slightly. Not from fear, she was past that now. This was pure adrenaline, her body preparing for what was coming. She got up and made coffee, watching the sky gradually lighten from black to gunmetal gray. Somewhere across the city, Ethan was probably still asleep in the house they used to share, Brittany beside him, both of them dreaming about their perfect evening ahead. The house. Selena wondered if Brittany had redecorated yet, erased all traces of the woman who'd lived there first. Probably. Women like Brittany didn't like reminders of their predecessor's existence. The coffee tasted like burnt cardboard, but Selena drank it anyway. She needed the caffeine, needed something to do with her hands while her mind raced through the evening ahead, cataloging everything that could go wrong. Her phone rang. She looked at the screen, saw Patricia's name, and almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Little early for a Saturday call," Selena said. "I know, I'm sorry." Patricia sounded frazzled. "But I just got the strangest phone call from Marcus Chen, Ethan's attorney." Selena's grip tightened on her coffee mug. "What did he want?" "He was asking about your financial disclosures from the divorce, whether there was anything we might have missed, any assets you didn't declare." Patricia paused. "Selena, is there something I should know?" "Like what?" "I don't know. It just seemed odd. The divorce is final. The waiver is signed. Why would he be asking these questions now?" "Because Ethan's getting nervous," Selena thought. "Because on some level, maybe he's starting to suspect that the ex-wife who rolled over so easily might not be as broken as she seemed." "There's nothing to worry about," Selena said carefully. "I disclosed everything I was required to disclose," which was technically true. She'd disclosed every asset that existed in her name at the time of the divorce filing. The fact that Ashford Global Holdings was structured through a network of trusts and corporate entities that didn't directly connect to her wasn't something she'd been legally required to explain. "Okay," Patricia said, though she didn't sound entirely convinced. "I just wanted to give you a heads up. Marcus also mentioned something about seeing you at some event tonight." "Ethan's engagement party." "You're going?" Patricia's voice shot up an octave. "Selena, why would you—" "It's complicated." "That's what you always say." Patricia sighed. "Look, I know this isn't my business anymore, but please be careful. Ethan's got his claws in deep with this new fiancée, and seeing you there might set him off. Men like him don't like reminders of their failures. I'll be fine." "Will you? Because from where I'm sitting, you look like someone who's about to walk into a room full of people who hate you, wearing a target on your back." Selena smiled despite herself. "That's actually pretty close to accurate." "That's not funny." "I know." Selena set down her coffee mug. "Patricia, I appreciate you looking out for me. I really do. But I promise you I know what I'm doing, what I'm—" They talked for a few more minutes before Patricia finally gave up and hung up, probably convinced her former client was having some kind of breakdown. The morning dragged. Selena tried to distract herself with TV, with a book, with cleaning an apartment that was already clean. Nothing worked. Her mind kept jumping ahead to tonight, running through scenarios, imagining Ethan's face when he realized what was happening. At noon, her phone buzzed with another text, this one from Maya. "Dad says you're coming tonight. Why?" Selena stared at the message for a long moment before typing back, "Because I was invited." The response came almost immediately. "That's weird." "Maybe, but I'd like to see you, even if it's just for a minute." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Whatever." Not exactly warm, but better than nothing. Selena would take it. She spent the afternoon getting ready with a level of care she hadn't bothered with in months. Long shower, hair washed and conditioned, skin exfoliated. The works. She was shedding the costume of defeated ex-wife, revealing the person underneath. At 4 o'clock, she started on her makeup. Nothing too dramatic. She wasn't trying to look like she was trying too hard. Just enough to look polished, professional, like someone who belonged in the room she'd be walking into. The dress came out of its garment bag at 5. The emerald green silk whispered as she slipped it on, the fabric cool against her skin. It fit perfectly, hugging her waist before falling in clean lines to just below her knee. Elegant, understated, expensive, without being flashy. She put on her grandmother's pearls, the weight of them familiar and comforting against her collarbone. Then the heels, black, simple, 4 inches that brought her to just under 6 feet tall. Selena looked at herself in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. This wasn't the tired, defeated version who'd sat in that courtroom 5 days ago. This was someone else entirely. Her phone rang at 5:30. "James, you ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be. Car's waiting downstairs. Driver knows to take you to the service entrance. Security will meet you there." "Security?" "Selena, you're about to walk into a room and publicly destroy a man's life. I'm not taking chances with your safety." She hadn't thought about that. About what Ethan might do when he realized what was happening. Would he get violent, 'cause a scene? She'd been so focused on the business side, the financial destruction, that she'd somehow forgotten the human element of rage. "Okay," she said. "Security's fine. Chenwei and I will be in the private suite upstairs. We'll have eyes on the ballroom through the venue's camera system. The moment you need us, we're there." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. Thank me when this is over and you're still standing." The car was a black Mercedes, not flashy, but clearly expensive. The driver was a woman in her 40s who didn't ask questions, just held the door and waited for Selina to settle into the back seat before pulling smoothly into traffic. The Legacy Hall was in the Gold Coast, because of course it was. Ethan wouldn't have his engagement party anywhere less than the most expensive venue in the city. The building was a restored mansion from the 1920s, all marble columns and crystal chandeliers, the kind of place that charged $20,000 just to walk through the door. They pulled up to a side entrance at 6:45. Selina had timed it deliberately, late enough that most guests would already be inside, but early enough that the main event hadn't started. She wanted to make an entrance, but not the entrance. Not yet. Two men in dark suits were waiting by the door. Security, clearly. One of them stepped forward as she got out of the car. "Ms. Ashford?" "That's me." "I'm Davis. This is Cho. We'll be nearby all evening. You won't see us unless you need to." He handed her a small device that looked like a car key fob. "Panic button. Press it twice fast if there's a problem." Selina slipped it into her clutch. "Let's hope I don't need it." "Let's hope." The service entrance led through a kitchen where staff were rushing around preparing canapes and champagne. A few of them glanced at Selina as she passed, probably wondering who she was and why she was coming in the back way, but they were too busy to care much. A hostess in a black dress met her at the door to the main hall. "Name?" "Selina Ashford." The woman checked her tablet, and something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. She'd probably been briefed on the guest list, knew that the ex-wife had RSVP'd, had been told to handle it discreetly. "Of course. Right this way." The hallway leading to the ballroom was decorated with photographs. Ethan and Brittany at various events over the past few months, charity galas, sporting events, vacation photos from what looked like the Maldives. In every picture, they looked perfect, happy, like they'd never known struggle or pain or consequence. Selina paused in front of one photo. Ethan in a tuxedo, Brittany in a red dress, both of them laughing at something off camera. His hand was on her waist, possessive. The same way he used to touch Selina, back when he still pretended to love her. "Ma'am?" The hostess was waiting. Selina pulled herself away from the photo and followed. The ballroom was exactly what she'd expected. High ceilings with ornate molding, massive chandeliers dripping crystal, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Round tables draped in ivory cloth, centerpieces of white roses and gold accents. A small stage at one end with a microphone stand, ready for speeches. And people. Easily 200 of them, maybe more. Investors, clients, business partners, society friends. All of them dressed in their finest, drinking champagne that probably cost more per bottle than Selina's monthly rent at the studio apartment. She stood in the doorway for a moment, scanning the crowd. There was Douglas Whitmore, one of Ethan's biggest investors, a silver-haired man in his 60s who'd made his fortune in real estate. Next to him, Jennifer Park, a venture capitalist Selina had met a few times at firm events. Further back, she spotted Marcus Chen talking to a group of lawyers, probably already working the room even at a social event. And then she saw Ethan. He was near the center of the room, surrounded by admirers like a king holding court. The tuxedo fit him perfectly, custom, obviously, probably cost $5,000. His hair was styled just so, his smile bright and confident. Brittany was glued to his side in a white dress that was clearly meant to evoke a wedding gown without actually being one. Subtle. Real subtle. Maya stood slightly apart from them, looking uncomfortable in a navy dress that was probably Brittany's choice. She had her phone out, clearly wishing she could be anywhere else. Selina took a breath and stepped into the room. For a few seconds, nothing happened. The crowd was too thick, the noise too loud. Nobody noticed one more guest arriving. Then Jennifer Park turned, saw Selina, and her mouth fell open. She elbowed the person next to her, whispered something. That person turned too. And suddenly it was spreading, this wave of recognition and shock, heads turning one by one. The conversations near the door started to fade, then the ones further in. Within maybe 30 seconds, a bubble of silence had formed around Selena, spreading outward until the entire ballroom had gone quiet. Ethan noticed the change in atmosphere and looked up. His eyes found Selena across the room. The expression on his face was almost worth the 6 months of planning by itself. Shock, confusion, and something that might have been fear, all flashing across his features in the space of a heartbeat before he schooled them into something more neutral. He handed his champagne glass to Brittany and started walking toward Selena. The crowd parted for him automatically, everyone watching to see what would happen when the divorced couple came face to face. Selena stood perfectly still and waited. Ethan stopped about 5 feet away, close enough to talk without shouting, but not close enough to touch. His jaw was tight, his eyes hard. "What are you doing here?" His voice was low, controlled, but she could hear the anger underneath. "I was invited." Selena kept her tone light, conversational. "It would have been rude not to come." "Bullshit." He glanced around at the watching crowd, then back to her. "You're trying to embarrass me." "Am I? By showing up to a party I was invited to wearing a nice dress? That seems like a pretty low bar for embarrassment." Brittany appeared at Ethan's elbow, all fake concern and venom disguised as sweetness. "Selena, hi. We're so glad you could make it." The words said one thing, her eyes said another. "Though I have to admit, we were surprised when we saw your RSVP. This must be hard for you." "Not really," Selena said. "I've moved on. I thought you'd want to know I'm happy for you both." "That's very gracious of you." Brittany's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Isn't it gracious, honey?" "Yeah, real gracious." Ethan was still staring at Selena like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Where'd you get that dress?" "A store. Where did you think?" "That's a Valentino. Vintage, but still. Not exactly thrift shop material." He'd always had an eye for expensive things. It was one of his tells the way he could spot designer labels from across a room. Selena had counted on it. "I've been saving up," she said. "Thought I'd treat myself." "On what? Your settlement hasn't even cleared yet." "I have my ways." The tension was thick enough to choke on. Around them, guests were pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. Selena could see phones out, people undoubtedly texting their friends about the drama unfolding at the Vale engagement party. "Look," Ethan said, his voice dropping even lower. "I don't know what game you're playing, but this isn't the place. You want to talk? We can talk. Tomorrow. Through lawyers. Like adults." "I'm not playing games, Ethan. I'm here to celebrate your engagement. That's what the invitation said, isn't it? Come celebrate?" Brittany's eyes narrowed. "You know what? This was a mistake. Maybe you should—" "There she is!" The voice cut through the tension like a knife. Everyone turned to see a man in his 50s approaching, hand extended, smile wide and genuine. He was dressed in an expensive suit, walking with the confidence of someone who owned rooms like this. Selena had never seen him before in her life, but she knew exactly who he was. Richard Caldwell, one of the senior partners from Manhattan Capital Partners. Or rather, the actor James had hired to play Richard Caldwell. "Ms. Ashford, I've been hoping to run into you." He took her hand, shook it warmly. "Richard Caldwell, Manhattan Capital Partners. I don't think we've been formally introduced, though I've certainly heard a lot about you." Ethan's face went through another series of expressions. Confusion dominated. "You two know each other?" "Not yet," Richard said cheerfully, "but I've been following Miss Ashford's work for some time. Very impressive portfolio, very impressive indeed." "Portfolio?" Ethan looked at Selena. "What portfolio? You don't— Oh." He stopped, the wheels clearly turning. "Wait, how do you even know her name?" "The guest list, of course. When I saw Selena Ashford on there, I thought, well, this is serendipitous. I'd been meaning to reach out about potential collaboration opportunities." Richard was good. Selena had to give him that. He sold the part completely. "Your ex-wife is quite the businesswoman, Mr. Vale. You must be very proud." The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan stared at Richard, then at Selena, then back to Richard. "I think there's been some mistake. Selena doesn't— she's not— Not in business?" Richard laughed. "Oh, come now. Surely you know about her investment portfolio, the consulting work." "No?" He looked genuinely surprised. "Well, I suppose that explains the divorce. Can't imagine someone like Miss Ashford wanting to stay married to a man who didn't recognize her talents. Brittany's hand had found Ethan's arm, her manicured nails digging in. This is ridiculous. Selena just took a settlement of $85,000. She's living in some dump in Lincoln Park. She's not exactly Warren Buffett. Appearances can be deceiving, Richard said smoothly. But I'm being rude, monopolizing Ms. Ashford's time at your celebration. We can catch up later, yes? Perhaps at the announcement. He walked away before anyone could respond, leaving a crater of confusion in his wake. Ethan grabbed Selena's elbow, his grip tight enough to hurt. What the hell was that? Let go of me. Her voice was quiet but firm. Not until you explain what's going on. How do you know Richard Caldwell? I told you, I don't. He approached me. Bullshit. He was talking about your portfolio, about business dealings. You don't have business dealings. You have a temp job and a shitty apartment. Is that what you tell yourself? Selena pulled her arm free. That I'm struggling? That I'm barely surviving? Does it make you feel better? I know you're struggling. I saw the financial disclosure in the divorce. You had nothing. I had nothing you knew about. The words hung there. Ethan's face went pale, then red. What does that mean? It means you never asked the right questions. Before Ethan could respond, someone clinked a glass. The sound rang through the ballroom, calling attention to the small stage. A man Selena didn't recognize was standing at the microphone, probably the MC Ethan had hired for the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please take your seats, we'll be starting the program shortly. People began moving toward the tables. Ethan looked torn between following them and continuing his interrogation of Selena. This conversation isn't over, he said. No, Selena agreed. It's really not. She walked away before he could stop her, heading toward a table near the back of the room. She'd specifically requested that spot when she RSVP'd, wanting to be able to see everything without being in the direct line of sight. Maya intercepted her halfway there. What are you doing here? The teenager's voice was accusing, defensive. Dad said you probably wouldn't come. Did he? Selena studied the girl who'd once called her mom, searching for any trace of warmth in those familiar eyes. Well, I wanted to support him, and I wanted to see you. You could see me during your stupid weekend visits. You didn't want to see me last weekend, remember? Maya's face flushed. That's different. This is Dad's special night and you're ruining it. By existing in the same room. By being here when everyone knows you're just his broke ex-wife who couldn't keep him happy. The words were clearly Ethan's, repeated in Maya's teenage voice. They still stung, even though Selena had heard variations of them before. Is that what he told you? That I couldn't keep him happy? He didn't have to tell me. I saw you guys fighting all the time. Saw you sleeping in separate rooms. Saw you crying when you thought nobody noticed. Maya's voice cracked slightly. You left us. You gave up. Selena wanted to scream, wanted to grab Maya by the shoulders and explain everything. The affairs, the financial crimes, the way her father had systematically destroyed their family while playing the victim. But Maya was 13, and this wasn't the time or place. I didn't give up on you, Selena said quietly. I never gave up on you. Whatever, just don't make a scene, okay? Dad's been planning this for weeks, and Brittany's already stressed about everything being perfect. I won't make a scene. Maya nodded and walked away, back toward the table at the front where Ethan and Brittany were sitting. Selena watched her go, feeling the familiar ache in her chest. She'd lost so much to Ethan's lies. Money could be replaced. Houses, cars, things, all replaceable. But Maya? That relationship might be broken beyond repair. She found her assigned table and sat down. The other seats were empty. Whoever else was supposed to sit there clearly hadn't arrived yet, or had strategically chosen to sit elsewhere to avoid the drama of being near the ex-wife. A waiter appeared with champagne. Selena took a glass even though she had no intention of drinking it. She needed her head completely clear for what was coming. The lights dimmed slightly, and the MC took the stage again. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us to celebrate Ethan and Brittany's engagement. I'm Tom Harrison, and I'll be your host for the evening. He had that professional speaker voice, smooth and practiced. Before we get to dinner, Ethan has a few words he'd like to share. Applause rippled through the room as Ethan stood and made his way to the stage. He'd regained his composure since the confrontation with Selena, his smile back in place, his stride confident. He took the microphone and waited for the applause to die down. Thank you all for being here tonight. Brittany and I are overwhelmed by your support and love. He reached out a hand and Brittany joined him on stage, leaning into his side. 6 months ago, I didn't think I'd ever find happiness again. My marriage had fallen apart. I was raising my daughter alone, and honestly, I wasn't sure I believed in second chances anymore. Selena's grip tightened on her champagne glass. The revisionist history was breathtaking. But then this beautiful, incredible woman came into my life and reminded me what it feels like to be truly seen, truly valued, truly loved. Ethan kissed Brittany's temple. She's been my rock through some challenging times, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with her. More applause. Brittany was beaming, her ring catching the light as she wiped away what might have been a real tear. I also want to take a moment to announce some exciting business news, Ethan continued. As many of you know, Vail Financial Group has been growing rapidly over the past few years. We've built something special, something I'm incredibly proud of. And tonight, I'm thrilled to announce that we've entered into a partnership with Manhattan Capital Partners, one of the most respected private equity firms in the country. The applause got louder. Selena saw Richard Caldwell and 2 other men she didn't recognize stand up and wave from their table near the front. More hired actors, all playing their parts perfectly. This partnership represents a major milestone for VFG and will allow us to expand our services and better serve our clients. I couldn't ask for better partners to help take us to the next level. Ethan raised his glass. So here's to new beginnings, both personal and professional. To second chances. To building something that lasts. To building something that lasts, the crowd echoed, glasses raised. Selena didn't raise hers. She was watching Ethan's face, seeing the triumph there, the absolute certainty that he'd won, that he'd escaped his crumbling empire by selling it to people who didn't know about his crimes, that he'd trade his damaged goods for clean money and walk away unscathed. He had no idea those people worked for her, that the company buying him out was a shell controlled by the woman he'd dismissed as a nobody, that in about 30 minutes, his entire world was going to collapse. The speeches concluded and dinner service began. Selena picked at her food, some kind of fish with vegetables, probably cost $100 a plate, while around her the party continued. People laughed, drank, celebrated. Nobody sat at her table. She was an island of isolation in a sea of festivities. Her phone buzzed discreetly in her clutch. She pulled it out under the table, saw a message from James. "Are you ready?" She typed back, "Yes." "MCP team is moving into position. Wait for my signal." Selena set her phone down and took a sip of water. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. She'd been preparing for this moment for months. There was no turning back now. The MC returned to the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special surprise this evening. The senior partners from Manhattan Capital Partners would like to say a few words about their exciting new partnership with Vail Financial Group." Richard Caldwell and his 2 colleagues made their way to the stage. Ethan was grinning from his table, probably thinking this was all part of the planned program, his new partners publicly validating his success. Richard took the microphone. "Thank you, Tom, and thank you to Ethan and Brittany for having us here tonight." He paused, looking out over the crowd. When Manhattan Capital Partners first approached Vail Financial Group about a potential acquisition, we did what we always do, extensive due diligence. We looked at the books, examined the client portfolio, analyzed the firm's structure and operations. Ethan was still smiling, but something in his posture had changed, a slight tensing of his shoulders. What we found was interesting. Richard's tone shifted, became cooler. On the surface, VFG appeared to be a thriving firm with solid returns and satisfied clients. But when we dug deeper, we discovered some significant irregularities. The smile was gone from Ethan's face now. He'd gone very still. Irregularities like client accounts being used for operating expenses, like falsified investment returns, like a shell company structure designed to hide the fact that the firm was essentially insolvent. Richard paused. In other words, we discovered that Vail Financial Group is not a thriving business. It's a fraud. The ballroom erupted. Gasps, exclamations, people jumping to their feet. Ethan stood up so fast his chair fell over backward. "This is insane," he shouted. "I don't know who you people really are, but we're exactly who we said we are," Richard interrupted calmly. "Representatives of Manhattan Capital Partners. which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Ashford Global Holdings. Every head in the room turned toward Selina. She stood up slowly, feeling the weight of 200 pairs of eyes on her. "Hello, Ethan," she said, her voice carrying in the sudden silence. "Surprise!" The silence that followed was absolute. Not a glass clinked, not a chair scraped, not a single breath seemed loud enough to break the moment. 200 people frozen in shock, their eyes ping-ponging between Selina at the back of the room and Ethan at the front, trying to make sense of what they'd just heard. Ethan's face had gone the color of old newspaper. His mouth opened and closed twice before any sound came out. "You... what?" He turned to Richard Caldwell. "Who the hell are you really?" "I told you, Manhattan Capital Partners." Richard gestured to his colleagues. "These are my associates, David Chen and Patricia Morrison. We've been negotiating with you for 6 weeks on behalf of our parent company, Ashford Global Holdings." "Ashford?" Ethan's head whipped back to Selina. No, this is some kind of sick joke." Selina started walking toward the stage. Her heels clicked against the marble floor, each step echoing in the cavernous room. People moved out of her way automatically, creating a path like she was Moses parting the Red Sea. "It's not a joke," she said, "though I understand why you'd hope it was. You don't have a company. You don't have anything. I saw the financial disclosure. You had maybe $20,000 in a checking account and some old car. That's it. That's what I showed you. There's a difference." She reached the stage and climbed the 3 steps up. Richard handed her the microphone with a slight smile and stepped back. Suddenly, Selina was standing where Ethan had been minutes ago, looking out over the crowd of shocked faces. She found Maya in the front row. The girl was white as chalk, her phone forgotten in her lap, staring at Selina like she was seeing a stranger. "Let me introduce myself properly," Selina said into the microphone. "My name is Selina Ashford. Some of you know me as Ethan's ex-wife. What most of you don't know is that I'm also the founder and CEO of Ashford Global Holdings, a private investment firm currently managing approximately $3.2 billion in assets." The number hit the room like a bomb. Someone in the back actually screamed. Multiple people grabbed for their phones. Marcus Chen was on his feet, his lawyer instincts kicking in. "This is harassment. You can't just—" "I can, actually." Selina's voice was calm, almost pleasant. "I was invited. I'm a guest here, same as everyone else. I'm just using my invitation a bit differently than Ethan expected." Ethan had grabbed onto the back of his chair like he needed it to stay upright. $3 billion, you're insane. Where would you even— My grandfather left me an inheritance when he died. You were at the funeral, remember? You held my hand while I cried, told me how sorry you were for my loss. Selina paused. What you didn't know was that Harold Ashford had spent 40 years building a fortune through industrial patents and strategic investments. He left everything to me in a trust that activated on my 30th birthday. 6 months ago. 6 months? Ethan's voice cracked. That's impossible. I would have known. The lawyers would have found it during discovery. Would they? Tell me, Ethan, did you actually read the financial disclosures I filed? Or did you just skim them, saw they showed what you expected to see, and moved on? His face said she'd hit the mark. He'd been so convinced she was broke, so certain he was the one with power and money, that he hadn't bothered to look closely. The trust was structured very carefully, Selina continued, turning to address the room now, rather than just Ethan. Everything was held in corporate entities, managed by trustees, completely separate from my personal finances. According to the letter of the law, I didn't have to disclose it because I didn't have direct personal ownership. The trustees did. Until my birthday. You lied, Brittany found her voice finally. She'd been standing frozen next to Ethan, but now she stepped forward, pointing at Selina with a shaking finger. You lied in court! That's illegal! I didn't lie. I disclosed exactly what I was required to disclose. If Ethan's lawyers had asked better questions, done more thorough research, they might have found the connections. But they didn't. They assumed I was just a housewife with no prospects, and they built their strategy around that assumption. This is fraud, Marcus said. He'd pulled out his phone and was presumably already dialing someone. Judge Morrison is going to hear about this and what? Selina tilted her head. Reopen a divorce case because one party turned out to be richer than disclosed? When there was a mutual waiver specifically preventing either party from making claims on the other's assets. Good luck with that. The waiver. She watched the realization hit Ethan like a physical blow. The clause he'd insisted on, that Marcus had drafted so carefully, that they'd used to make sure Selena couldn't come back later asking for more money. It went both ways. He couldn't touch her fortune any more than she could touch his, or what he thought was his. You planned this. Ethan's voice was barely above a whisper. The whole divorce, the settlement. You planned all of it. I did. Why? The word came out broken. If you had all that money, why did you stay with me? Why did you let me treat you like... He stopped, maybe realizing what he'd been about to admit in front of 200 witnesses. Like trash, Selena finished for him, because I needed to be sure. I needed to watch you, see what you'd do with your company when you thought no one was looking, and what I found was worse than I'd imagined. She nodded to Richard, who pulled out a tablet and tapped something. Suddenly, the screens that had been showing pictures of Ethan and Brittany's relationship went dark, then lit up again with spreadsheets, bank statements, email threads. Vail Financial Group is insolvent, Selena said, her voice steady and clear. It has been for at least 18 months. Ethan has been using client money to cover operational expenses, falsifying returns, and creating shell companies to hide the losses. The firm currently owes approximately $215 million that it has no way to repay. That's privileged information, Ethan roared. You can't... Where did you even get... I hired forensic accountants, perfectly legal. And since I was planning to acquire the company, I was entitled to do due diligence. Selena smiled thinly. The same due diligence you thought Manhattan Capital Partners was doing. They were. They just worked for me. Douglas Whitmore, the silver-haired real estate investor, was on his feet. Ethan, is this true? Have you been misappropriating client funds? No, I mean, it's more complicated than... Ethan was sweating now, his perfect hair starting to come undone. We had some cash flow issues, yes, but I was going to replace it all once the MCP deal went through. There is no MCP deal, Selena interrupted. Or rather, there is, but not the one you thought. Manhattan Capital Partners has been authorized by Ashford Global Holdings to make you one offer and one offer only. Richard pulled out a leather portfolio and opened it. Mr. Vail, this is a purchase agreement for Vail Financial Group. Ashford Global Holdings will acquire 100% of the company for the sum of $1. In exchange, we will assume all debts, restore all misappropriated client funds, and handle all communications with regulatory agencies. $1? Ethan's laugh was manic. You want to buy my company for $1? Your company isn't worth $1, Selena said flatly. It's worth negative $200 million. I'm being generous. This is extortion. No, this is a bailout. You should be thanking me. Jennifer Parks stood up at her table. Selena, what exactly are you saying? Are client funds actually missing? Yes. Selena turned to address her directly. Approximately $42 million has been transferred out of client accounts over the past 18 months. Some of it went to operational expenses, some went to cover bad investments Ethan made trying to inflate his returns. Some of it paid for. She glanced at Brittany's ring. Personal expenses. The room exploded. People shouting questions, accusations, denials. Several investors were yelling at Ethan, demanding explanations. Brittany had grabbed his arm, her face twisted in confusion and dawning horror. You told me the business was thriving, she hissed at him, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. You said you were closing the biggest deal of your career. I was. She's lying. She's bitter about the divorce and she's trying to destroy me. Bitter? Selena's voice cut through the chaos. Ethan, I don't need to destroy you. You destroyed yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. Marcus had pushed his way through the crowd to the stage. Don't sign anything, he told Ethan. We need to review this, get our own accountants to verify. There's nothing to verify, Richard said calmly. We have 6 months of documentation. Bank records, emails, wire transfer receipts. Mr. Chen, you're welcome to review it all, but I should warn you that we've also forwarded copies to the SEC and the FBI. The color drained from Marcus's face. You did what? This afternoon. They should be opening their investigations Monday morning. Selena looked at Ethan. So you have a choice. You can sign this agreement, let me take over the company, and walk away with your freedom and enough money to start over clean. Or you can refuse and spend the next 5 to 10 years in federal prison while your daughter watches her father become a convicted felon." Maya made a sound like she'd been punched. Selena hated doing this to her, hated that the girl had to hear all of this in front of a crowd. But there was no gentle way to detonate someone's life. "You're bluffing," Ethan said, but his voice shook. "You wouldn't actually try me." Selena's eyes were cold. "You cheated on me, lied to me, turned my daughter against me, and thought you could throw me away like garbage. You think I won't follow through?" "Your daughter?" Brittany's voice was shrill. "She's not your daughter. She's his daughter. You were just the stepmother. I was the one who raised her." Selena's control slipped for just a second, her voice rising. "I was the one who stayed up with her when she had nightmares, who helped her with her homework, who taught her how to ride a bike because Ethan was too busy building his empire of lies. I loved that child more than anything, and he took her away from me to punish me for not being satisfied with his scraps." The rawness in her voice silenced the room again. Even Ethan looked shaken. Maya was crying. Quiet tears streaming down her face, her hands clutched in her lap. Selena wanted to go to her, to hold her, to explain everything properly. But she couldn't break now. Not yet. She took a breath and forced her voice back to steady. "Sign the agreement, Ethan. It's the only smart choice you have left." "And if I don't, you'll actually send me to prison? Ruin my life?" "Your life is already ruined. I'm offering you a chance to salvage some dignity and protect your daughter from watching you get arrested." Selena paused. "But yes, if you don't sign, I will make sure you face every consequence you've been running from. The fraud charges, the investor lawsuits, the professional disgrace, all of it." Ethan looked around the ballroom like he was hoping someone would save him, but the faces staring back were angry, disgusted, or calculating their own losses. His investors saw him as a liability now. His friends saw him as a fraud. Even Brittany had taken a step back, putting distance between herself and the man she'd been about to marry. "How much time do I have?" he asked quietly. "To decide? Right now. Sign tonight or the offer disappears." "That's not... You can't force me to make a decision this fast." "I can, actually. I own the company buying yours. I set the terms." Selena nodded to Richard, who produced a pen and set it on the table next to the agreement. 23 pages. It's all standard acquisition language. My lawyers will walk you through it if you want, but the bottom line is simple. You give up VFG, I restore the stolen funds and keep you out of prison. Take it or leave it. Marcus grabbed Ethan's arm. "We need to review this privately. This is insane, making a decision like this under pressure in front of all the people I defrauded." Ethan's laugh was bitter. "Yeah, that's the point, isn't it? She wants them to watch me surrender." "Well, I want you to face consequences," Selena corrected. "How you do that is up to you." Ethan stared at the agreement like it was a snake that might bite him. His hand trembled as he reached for it, picked it up, started flipping through pages without really reading them. "If I sign this, what happens to me?" "You walk away. The firm transfers to AGH. We handle all the regulatory cleanup. We restore the client accounts. You'll have enough money to live on. Not the lifestyle you're used to, but you won't be on the street. And most importantly, you won't go to prison." "What about the house?" "The house is mortgaged to the hilt. It'll be sold to cover debts." "My cars?" "Same. Anything purchased with misappropriated funds goes back to make the clients whole." Ethan's face crumpled. "So I lose everything." "You lose everything you stole, yes?" Brittany made a strangled sound. "This is crazy." "Ethan, tell her to go to hell. We'll fight this. With what money?" Ethan turned to her, and for the first time since Selena had known him, he looked genuinely defeated. "She's right. The company's broke. I'm broke. And if I don't sign this, I'm going to prison." He looked back at Selena. "You really thought of everything, didn't you?" "I had 6 months and $3 billion. Yes, I thought of everything." Douglas Whitmore pushed his way to the front. "Ms. Ashford, if you restore the client accounts, how do we know you won't just take over the firm and run it into the ground out of spite?" "You don't," Selena said honestly. "But consider the alternative. If Ethan refuses this deal, the FBI investigation moves forward. VFG gets frozen, accounts get locked, and you all spend the next 3 years in litigation trying to recover pennies on the dollar. At least this way you get your money back immediately and the firm continues operating under competent management. And you expect us to just trust you? No, I expect you to make the smart business decision. Trust doesn't enter into it. She looked at each of the major investors in turn. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this because leaving Ethan in charge means more people get hurt, and I'm tired of watching him destroy things. Jennifer Park spoke up. What guarantees do we have that the funds will actually be restored? Richard stepped forward. Ashford Global Holdings has already set aside the full amount in escrow. The moment Mr. Vale signs the agreement, the transfers begin. You'll see your account balances corrected within 48 hours. Jesus Christ, someone muttered. She really does have $3 billion. The reality was sinking in now. This wasn't a bluff or a dramatic gesture. Selina had the resources, the lawyers, the evidence, and the will to actually pull this off. Ethan set the agreement down on the table. His hand hovered over it, pen clutched in shaking fingers. If I sign this, what happens to Brittany and me? That's up to you, though I'd suggest checking whether she still wants to marry a broke man before making any plans. Selina's voice was cold. Brittany flinched. She was backing away slowly, her eyes darting between Ethan and the exit like she was calculating escape routes. You're really going to leave me? Ethan asked her, turning. Right now? In front of everyone? I didn't sign up for this. Brittany's voice was panicked. You told me you were successful. You told me we'd have this perfect life. We will. This is temporary. Once I fight this in court. There's nothing to fight, Selina interrupted. The evidence is ironclad. The waiver prevents you from touching my assets. And the fraud is real and documented. You can waste your last dollar on lawyers if you want, but you'll still end up in the same place, just poorer and angrier. Marcus was reading over Ethan's shoulder now, his face getting grimmer with each page. She's right, he said quietly. This is airtight. And if even half of what she's saying about the missing funds is true, you don't have a defense. So what? I just give up? Let her win? You already lost, Selina said. The question is whether you lose everything, including your freedom, or just everything material. Ethan looked at Maya. She was still crying, her whole body shaking with sobs. A woman Selina didn't recognize, probably someone's wife, being kind, had an arm around her shoulders, trying to comfort her. Maya, sweetheart, Ethan started. Don't. Maya's voice was thick with tears. Just don't. You told me she was the bad one. You told me she left because she didn't care about us. But you stole money? You lied to everyone? It's not that simple. It sounds pretty simple. Maya stood up abruptly, shaking off the comforting arm. She's been telling me for months that things were complicated, that I'd understand when I was older, and I thought she was just making excuses. But you actually did something wrong. Her voice broke. How could you? I was trying to protect us, to build something for our future. By stealing? Maya wiped her face angrily. That's not protecting us. That's just being a criminal. The words hung in the air, a 13-year-old calling her father a criminal in front of 200 people. Ethan looked like he'd been shot. Selina wanted to intervene, to shield Maya from this moment. But the girl needed to hear it, needed to understand what her father really was before she spent more years being poisoned against the woman who actually loved her. I'm sorry, Ethan said to Maya. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I never wanted you to find out like this. Find out what? That you're a liar? Yeah, I'd imagine you wanted to keep that secret. Maya turned to Selina. Her face was blotchy and red, her eye makeup running. Did you know? When you were married to him? I suspected something was wrong. I found proof a few months before the divorce. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? Selina asked gently. You were barely speaking to me by then. Your father had already convinced you I was the villain. Maya's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I should have... Hey. Selina came down off the stage, crossed to where Maya stood, and pulled her into a hug. Yeah, and pulled. The girl resisted for about half a second before collapsing into her, sobbing into Selina's shoulder like she was 6 years old again instead of 13. I've got you, Selina whispered. I never stopped having you, baby. Never. Behind her, she heard the pen scratching across paper. She didn't turn around, just held Maya and listened to Ethan sign away everything he'd built on lies and stolen money. When the sobbing had subsided to hiccups, Selena gently pulled back and wiped Maya's face with her thumb. "You okay?" "No, but I will be." Maya glanced past Selena to where her father stood. "Is he really going to lose everything?" "Everything material, yes." "Good." The word was hard, bitter. "He deserves it." "Maybe, but he's still your father." "I don't care." Maya's jaw set in that stubborn way that reminded Selena of herself. "He lied to me about you. He made me hate you for no reason. I don't know if I can forgive that." Selena wanted to tell her that forgiveness would come with time, that anger this sharp would eventually dull. But she didn't know if that was true. And she wasn't going to lie to this child anymore. "You don't have to decide anything tonight," she said instead. "Let's just get you somewhere quiet." Richard appeared at her elbow. "Agreement signed, all 23 pages properly witnessed. Vale Financial Group is officially property of Ashford Global Holdings as of 7:47 p.m. Selena nodded. "Begin the account restorations. I want every client made whole by Monday morning." "Already in progress. Chenway's handling it from New York." Around them, the party had completely disintegrated. People were clustered in groups, some yelling at Ethan, others on their phones, presumably calling their lawyers or the press. Brittany had disappeared entirely. Selena caught a glimpse of white dress fleeing toward the exit. Ethan sat at his table with his head in his hands. Marcus was beside him, talking rapidly, probably trying to figure out damage control. But there was no controlling this. The story was already out there, spreading across social media, texts, phone calls. By tomorrow morning, every news outlet in the country would be running with it. Selena kept her arm around Maya's shoulders. "Come on, let's get out of here." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere you don't have to see all this." Selena guided her toward a side exit where Davis and Cho, her security team, were waiting. "Is your stuff at your dad's house?" "Most of it." "We'll get it tomorrow. Tonight, you're staying with me." "At the apartment in Lincoln Park?" "No, at my real place." Maya's eyes widened. "You have a real place?" "I have several. The apartment was just for show." Selena pushed through the door into the blessedly quiet hallway. Behind them, the chaos of the ballroom faded. "There's a lot I need to explain to you. About the inheritance, about why I stayed with your father as long as I did, about the divorce. All of it." "Okay." Maya's voice was small, exhausted. "I'm ready to hear it now. The truth, I mean." "Good. Because I'm done hiding." They made it to the car, a different car this time, an Escalade with tinted windows and Davis at the wheel. Selena helped Maya into the back seat and climbed in after her. As they pulled away from the Legacy Hall, Selena looked back one time. Through the windows, she could see the ballroom still lit up, people moving around like ants in a disturbed colony. Somewhere in there, Ethan was having the worst night of his life. His empire gone, his fiancée fled, his reputation destroyed, his daughter taken by the woman he'd tried so hard to diminish. Selena turned away from the window and looked at Maya instead. The girl had her head against the seat, eyes closed, tear tracks drying on her face. This was what mattered, not the revenge, not the money, not even the satisfaction of watching Ethan fall. Maya mattered. Getting her daughter back mattered. Everything else was just details. They drove north through the city, away from the Gold Coast and toward the quieter neighborhoods along the lake. Maya didn't ask where they were going, just trusted Selena to take her somewhere safe. That trust, after months of hostility and distance, felt more valuable than all $3 billion. The penthouse was in a building on Lakeshore Drive, 42 floors up, with windows overlooking the water. Selena had bought it 6 months ago when the trust activated, one of the first things she'd done with her newfound wealth. It was beautiful, all clean lines and natural light, decorated in soft grays and blues, but she'd barely spent any time there. She'd been too busy playing the struggling ex-wife in her studio apartment. Maya walked through the front door and stopped, just staring. "This is yours?" "This is ours. Your room's down that hall, second door on the right. I had it set up weeks ago." "You... what?" Maya walked to the hallway, peeked in the door Selena indicated. The room was decorated for a teenager with a desk for homework and a reading nook by the window and posters of bands Maya liked on the walls. "How did you... when did you..." I knew I'd get you back eventually, Selena said simply. I was just waiting for the right moment. Maya turned back to her, and fresh tears were starting. I was so mean to you. You were manipulated by someone you trusted. That's not your fault. I should have known better. I should have seen Maya. Selena crossed to her, took both her hands. You were 13 years old dealing with your parents' divorce. You're allowed to have been confused and angry. I'm not mad at you. I was never mad at you. The girl dissolved into tears again, and Selena held her until the storm passed. Later, after Maya had showered and changed into pajamas Selena had bought in her size, they sat together on the couch. Selena made tea, real tea from the good kettle, not the microwave instant stuff from the studio, and they talked. She told Maya about Harold Ashford and the inheritance, about the trustees and the conditions and the moment 6 months ago when everything had changed, about building Ashford Global Holdings in secret while maintaining her cover as the struggling ex-wife. She told her about discovering Ethan's fraud, about hiring the forensic accountants and watching the evidence pile up, about making the decision to take him down, to expose everything, to make sure he faced real consequences for once. Maya listened to all of it, asking questions occasionally, processing the enormity of what had happened. So you were rich the whole time? She asked finally. During the divorce, during all those weekend visits when you picked me up in that crappy Honda, you were secretly a billionaire? Yes. That's kind of insane. Very insane, Selena agreed, but necessary. If anyone had known, Ethan would have fought the divorce differently, might have found ways to claim some of the money. I needed him to think I was nothing, so he'd let his guard down. And tonight, at the party, that was your revenge? That was justice. There's a difference. Maya considered this. The people he stole from are getting their money back? Every penny, plus interest. And Dad's really going to lose everything? Everything he bought with stolen money, yes. The house, the cars, his company. But he's not going to prison as long as he stays out of the way and lets me clean up his mess. That's more than he deserves. Selena didn't disagree. But she also understood the complicated mix of emotions Maya must be feeling. Anger at her father for lying, but also grief for the person she'd thought he was. You don't have to hate him, Selena said quietly. He's still your father. He made terrible choices, but that doesn't mean you can't love the parts of him that were real. Were any parts real? Maya's voice was bitter. Or was it all just lies? Some of it was real. His love for you was real. Is real even now. He wanted success so badly that he lost sight of everything else, including his ethics. They sat in silence for a while, drinking their tea, watching the city lights reflect off the lake. I'm sorry, Maya said finally, for believing him, for shutting you out, for... Stop. Selena set down her mug and turned to face Maya fully. You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing. You were a kid caught in the middle of adult problems. I should have protected you better, should have found a way to tell you the truth without putting you in the middle. You couldn't have told me. I wouldn't have listened. Maybe not, but I could have tried harder. Selena brushed Maya's hair back from her face, the gesture achingly familiar from years of bedtime routines and morning tangles. I love you. That never changed, not for a single second. And now that we have a chance to rebuild, I'm not going to waste it. Maya leaned into her, and Selena wrapped her arms around the girl who was her daughter in every way that mattered. Her phone buzzed sometime around 11. James calling with updates. The press had gotten hold of the story, and it was everywhere. Vail Financial Group exposed as fraud. Ex-wife's billion-dollar revenge. CEO loses everything at own engagement party. The headlines were lurid, sensational, and mostly accurate. James also reported that Brittany Monroe had released a statement through her publicist claiming she'd had no knowledge of Mr. Vail's financial irregularities and was reevaluating her relationship in light of these revelations. A translation: she dumped him the second she got home and was already trying to salvage her own reputation. Marcus Chen had tried calling Selena 14 times. She'd blocked his number. The SEC had confirmed their investigation was moving forward. The FBI was reviewing materials provided by concerned parties. Ethan's other investors were lawyering up, though most of them would be made whole by Monday, so their anger was more about principle than actual loss. and Vail Financial Group was officially dead. The name would be retired, the company restructured under new management, the entire operation folded into Ashford Global Holdings' portfolio. Selina listened to all of it with Maya asleep against her shoulder and felt the weight of 6 months of planning finally lift. It was done. Ethan was finished. And she'd gotten her daughter back. Not a bad night's work, all things considered. Sunday morning came too early. Selina woke to sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee she hadn't made. For a disoriented moment, she thought she was back in the studio apartment, that last night had been some elaborate fever dream. Then she heard the clatter of dishes from the kitchen and remembered. Maya was here, in the penthouse, making breakfast, apparently. Selina pulled on a robe and padded out to find the teenager standing at the stove, attempting to flip what looked like pancakes. The kitchen was a disaster zone. Flour on the counter, eggshells in the sink, a mixing bowl with batter dripping down the side. "I'm not very good at this," Maya said without turning around. "But I thought you might be hungry." "I'm starving." Selina came to stand beside her. "Want help?" "Maybe. These keep breaking when I try to flip them." They worked together in comfortable silence, salvaging what they could of the pancakes and starting fresh with the ruined ones. It was domestic and simple and almost painfully normal after the chaos of last night. Maya's phone kept buzzing on the counter. She'd glance at it, make a face, and ignore it. "You can check that," Selina said. "It's just people from school. They saw the news." Maya flipped a pancake successfully and looked pleased with herself. "Everyone wants to know if it's true, if my dad really stole millions of dollars, if you're really a secret billionaire. Jessica Thornton sent me 14 texts asking if we're still friends or if I'm too rich now." "What did you tell her?" "Nothing yet. I don't know what to say." Maya plated the pancake and started another. "Is it true? Are we rich now?" The question was loaded. Selina chose her words carefully. "I'm financially secure. You're my daughter, so yes, that extends to you. But Maya, money isn't—" I know. Money doesn't buy happiness. It's what's inside that counts, blah, blah, blah." Maya rolled her eyes, but there was no real heat in it. "I'm 13, not stupid. I know having money doesn't fix everything, but it's still weird to go from thinking you were broke to finding out you have like $3 billion. Fair point. They ate breakfast at the kitchen island, syrup-soaked pancakes and strong coffee for Selina, orange juice for Maya. Through the windows, Lake Michigan stretched out gray and restless under cloudy skies. "What happens now?" Maya asked eventually. "What do you mean?" "With everything. With Dad, with the company, with us. Do I have to go back to his place? Do I still have to do the custody schedule?" Selina had been dreading this conversation. "Legally, yes. Your father still has primary custody, but I'm going to file for a modification based on changed circumstances." "What changed circumstances?" "He's about to lose his house, for one. He won't have a stable living situation. Plus, there's the criminal investigation, even if he's not being charged himself. I can argue that it's not in your best interest to be in that environment." Maya pushed her pancakes around her plate. "What if I don't want to see him at all?" "Then we'll tell the court that. You're old enough that your preference matters." Selina reached over and squeezed Maya's hand. "But sweetheart, he's still your father. He made terrible choices, but that doesn't mean—" "Stop defending him." Maya pulled her hand away. "I know you're trying to be fair or whatever, but he doesn't deserve it. He lied to me about you for months. Made me think you were this terrible person who abandoned us. And the whole time he was the one doing awful stuff." "I know. And I'm not defending what he did. I'm just saying that cutting him out completely is a big decision. One you might regret later." "Or I might not." Maya's jaw was set in that stubborn line again. "Can we just not talk about him right now? Please?" So they didn't. Instead, they cleaned up the kitchen together. Then Selina showed Maya around the penthouse properly. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, an office that Selina used for work when she wasn't at the AGH headquarters in New York. Maya's room had its own bathroom and a walk-in closet that made the teenager's eyes go wide. "This is bigger than my room at Dad's house," she said, running her hand along the built-in shelves. "When did you set all this up?" "About a month ago. I bought the furniture, picked out the bedding, stocked the closet with clothes in your size." Selina leaned against the doorframe. "I didn't know when you'd be ready to stay here, but I wanted it waiting for you." Maya turned to look at her, and there were tears in her eyes again. You really never gave up on me, did you? Not for a second. They spent the rest of the morning in comfortable domesticity. Maya did homework at the kitchen table while Selena worked on her laptop, fielding emails from James and Chenwei about the fallout from last night. The news coverage was extensive and mostly favorable to Selena. Brilliant ex-wife exposes fraud was the general narrative, with Ethan painted as the villain and Selena as the wronged woman who'd gotten her revenge. A few outlets tried to paint her as vindictive or manipulative, but they were drowned out by the bigger story. A major financial firm had been running a Ponzi-style scheme, and only the intervention of a secret billionaire had kept it from destroying hundreds of investors. Chenwei sent her a preliminary assessment of Vail Financial Group's actual assets versus liabilities. It was worse than they'd thought. Ethan had been cooking the book so thoroughly that it would take months to untangle everything, but AGH had the resources and the expertise to do it right. James called around noon. "You need to see this." "See what?" "Ethan's doing a press conference. It's streaming live right now." Selena pulled up the link he sent. Sure enough, there was Ethan standing outside what she recognized as Marcus Chen's law office, a cluster of microphones in his face and cameras rolling. He looked terrible. The custom tuxedo was gone, replaced by jeans and a rumpled button-down. His hair wasn't styled, his eyes were red-rimmed, and he'd clearly gotten no sleep. Marcus stood beside him, one hand on Ethan's shoulder, like a handler managing a volatile client. "Is that Dad?" Maya had come over to look at the screen. "Yeah." They watched as Ethan cleared his throat and began reading from a prepared statement. "I want to start by apologizing to everyone I've hurt through my actions. To my investors, to my clients, to my employees, and most importantly, to my daughter Maya." His voice cracked on her name. "I made serious mistakes in how I managed Vail Financial Group. I took shortcuts I shouldn't have taken, and I used money in ways that were inappropriate and unethical." "Unethical," Selena muttered. "That's one word for it." "I want to be clear that my ex-wife, Selena Ashford, did nothing wrong," Ethan continued. "She uncovered my wrongdoing through legitimate means and gave me an opportunity to make things right. I'm grateful for that opportunity, and I'm committed to cooperating fully with all investigations and ensuring that every client is made whole." "Grateful?" Maya said flatly. "He looks like he's being held hostage," which wasn't far from the truth. This press conference was almost certainly part of the deal, a way for Ethan to control the narrative before it completely got away from him. Admit fault. Praise Selena. Promise cooperation. Classic crisis management. A reporter shouted a question that the camera didn't quite catch. Ethan flinched. Marcus leaned into the microphones. "Mr. Vail won't be taking questions at this time. Thank you." They started to leave, but another reporter's voice rang out clear. "Mr. Vail, is it true that your fiancé left you after the engagement party?" Ethan stopped, turned back, and for just a moment the careful mask slipped and Selena saw raw pain underneath. "Brittany and I have decided to postpone our engagement," he said. "That's all I'll say about my personal life." Postpone. Not cancel. The man was still clinging to hope. The press conference ended and Selena closed the laptop. Maya was staring at the blank screen, her expression unreadable. "He looks sad," she said finally. "He is sad. His life fell apart." "Good." But Maya didn't sound as certain as she had earlier. "I mean, I know I should feel bad for him. He's my dad and he's losing everything. But I just keep thinking about how he lied, about you, about the money, about everything. Those feelings can coexist. You can be angry at what he did and still feel sad that he's hurting. Is that how you feel?" Selena thought about it. Did she feel sad for Ethan? 6 months ago, she would have said no. Would have said he deserved every bit of suffering coming his way. But watching him stand there looking broken and lost, she found she felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, not even pity. Just a kind of hollow numbness where her feelings for him used to live. "I feel tired," she said honestly, "and relieved that it's over. But sad for him? No. He made his choices." Maya nodded slowly. Then her phone buzzed again and she glanced at it. "It's Dad. He wants to talk to me. Do you want to talk to him?" "I don't know." Maya stared at the phone like it might explode. "What should I say?" "Whatever you're feeling. You don't owe him comfort right now, Maya. If you're angry, you're allowed to be angry. Maya took a breath and answered the call. Hello? Selena moved to give her privacy, but Maya grabbed her wrist, silently asking her to stay. So she sat there while Maya talked to her father, watching the teenager's face cycle through emotions: anger, sadness, frustration, guilt. I don't know if I forgive you yet, Maya said at one point. You really hurt her, Dad. And you hurt me by lying about her. Silence while Ethan responded. No, I'm not coming home today. I'm staying with Selena. Maya's voice got firmer. And before you say anything, she's not making me. I want to be here. More silence. Maya's grip on Selena's wrist tightened. I don't care what the custody agreement says. I'm 13, not 5. The judge will listen to what I want. She paused. Yeah, well, maybe you should have thought about that before you stole millions of dollars. She hung up without saying goodbye. Her hand was shaking. You okay? Selena asked. He said you were poisoning me against him, that you were using me to get revenge. Maya's voice was thick, like I'm too stupid to make my own decisions about who I trust. That's not fair to you. Nothing about this is fair. Maya slumped back against the couch cushions. My dad's a criminal. My stepmom. Are you still my stepmom if you're divorced? I don't know. We never really figured that out. Well, whatever you are, you're secretly a billionaire who spent 6 months planning to destroy my dad's life. My ex-almost stepmom ran away the second things got hard. And I'm supposed to just what? Go to school tomorrow and pretend everything's normal? Selena pulled Maya against her side. You don't have to go to school tomorrow. We can call you in sick, give you a few days to process everything. Everyone's going to know anyway. It's all over the news. I know, but at least you won't have to face it before you're ready. They sat there for a while. Maya curled against Selena's side like she used to do when she was little and scared of thunderstorms. Outside, the city went about its Sunday business, oblivious to the small drama playing out 42 floors up. Selena's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Ms. Ashford, this is Douglas Whitmore. We met briefly last night before everything. I remember. The silver-haired real estate investor. How can I help you? I wanted to apologize for my role in what happened. I was one of Vail's biggest investors, and I should have done more due diligence. Should have asked harder questions. He paused. I also wanted to thank you. I had over $15 million in that firm. If you hadn't stepped in, I would have lost everything. You're welcome. But I didn't do it for you specifically. I know. You did it for justice or revenge. Maybe both. He didn't sound judgmental, just matter of fact. Either way, I benefited, and I wanted you to know that if you need anything going forward, references, introductions, investment opportunities, I'm here. After he hung up, the calls started coming steadily. Jennifer Park, offering support and apologizing for not seeing the fraud earlier. 3 other investors expressing gratitude. Even a few business reporters asking for interviews about how she'd built AGH in secret and what her plans were now. Selena declined the interviews but took notes on the other calls. These were the people she'd have to work with going forward. The investors and power players in Ethan's former world who were now scrambling to realign themselves with her. Monday morning brought more chaos. Selena had to go into the AGH office, the real one, a small suite in the Loop that she'd been careful to keep separate from her personal life. Chenwei flew in from New York, and James had assembled the full legal team. Maya came with her. Selena had arranged for a private tutor to handle her schooling for the next week, someone discreet who wouldn't gossip about working for a billionaire's daughter. The girl sat in Selena's office doing algebra while the adults met in the conference room and figured out how to absorb a failed financial firm. The numbers were staggering. Vail Financial Group had over 350 clients, managing approximately $800 million in assets. Except most of those assets were fictitious, propped up by falsified returns and creative accounting. The actual value was closer to $500 million, and $42 million of that had been misappropriated entirely. It's going to take 6 months minimum to sort this out, Chenwei said, scrolling through spreadsheets on her laptop. We need to notify every client, provide accurate account statements, and restructure the entire operation. What about the employees? Selena asked. How many people worked for Vail? 37, mostly analysts, administrative staff. A few junior partners? James pulled up another document. The question is how many of them knew about the fraud. Assume they all knew something, Selena said. Even if they weren't actively participating, they had to have seen red flags. We'll do individual interviews, figure out who was complicit and who was just following orders. The complicit ones get fired and potentially referred for prosecution. The others get a chance to stay on under new management. They worked through the details for hours. By the time they broke for lunch, Selena had a headache and a new appreciation for just how much damage one man's greed could cause. She found Maya in her office, textbook closed, staring at her phone. Everything okay? Dad's house is being sold. Maya held up her phone to show a real estate listing. I just got an alert. It's already on the market. Selena looked at the listing. The house she'd lived in for 3 years, where she'd raised Maya and tried to build a family, now reduced to square footage and asking price. $3.4 million. Ethan had paid $4.2 for it, which meant he was already underwater on the mortgage. That was fast, Selena said. Where's he going to live? I don't know. He'll figure something out. Maya set her phone down. Do you think he hates you? Probably. Do you think he should? I don't know. Maya looked up at her. Is what you did revenge or justice? Everyone keeps using those words like they're different, but they kind of seem the same to me. Selena sat down in the chair next to Maya's. It was a good question, one she'd been asking herself for months. Revenge is about making someone hurt because they hurt you, she said slowly. Justice is about making someone face consequences for their actions. I think what I did was both. I wanted him to face consequences for the fraud, for stealing from people who trusted him, but I also wanted him to hurt the way he hurt me. Is that bad? I don't know. Maybe. But it's honest. Selena looked at Maya. I'm not going to lie and say I did this purely out of noble motives. I wanted him to suffer. I wanted him to know what it felt like to lose everything. And yeah, that's probably not something I should be proud of. But you are proud of it. It wasn't a question. Parts of it. I'm proud that I uncovered the fraud. Proud that I saved those investors from losing everything. Proud that I built something real while he was building something fake. Selena paused. But am I proud that I humiliated him in front of 200 people? That I timed the revelation for maximum damage? I don't know. Ask me again in a year. Maya considered this. I think it's okay to want revenge sometimes. If someone hurts you bad enough. Maybe. But revenge has costs. It takes time and energy, and it changes you. I spent 6 months planning this, 6 months lying and hiding and building toward one moment. That's 6 months I can't get back. Was it worth it? Selena looked at the girl beside her, the daughter she'd gotten back because of those 6 months of planning. Yeah, it was worth it. That afternoon, Marcus Chen showed up at the office. Security called up asking if Selena would see him, and after a moment's consideration, she said yes. He walked into her office looking like he'd aged 10 years over the weekend. His expensive suit was rumpled, his tie loose, and there were bags under his eyes that spoke of no sleep and too much stress. I'm not here on Ethan's behalf, he said before Selena could speak. I'm here on my own, to apologize. Selena leaned back in her chair. I'm listening. I should have caught the fraud. I was his attorney. I saw the financial statements. I reviewed the corporate structure. There were red flags everywhere, and I ignored them because Ethan was a good client and I didn't want to lose the business. Marcus sat down without being invited. I knew something was off. Maybe not the full extent, but I knew. And I didn't ask the hard questions. You're right, you should have. I know, and now I'm probably going to lose my license over it. He laughed bitterly. The Illinois Bar Association is already asking questions. Even if I'm not charged with anything criminal, my career is over. Selena felt something that might have been sympathy. Might have been. Why are you telling me this? Because you were right. In the courtroom last week, when you accepted that settlement without fighting, I thought you were weak. Thought you were just another ex-wife who didn't have the stomach for a real fight. He met her eyes. I was wrong. You're the smartest person in every room you walk into, and I should have seen that. Flattery won't help you. I'm not trying to help myself. I'm trying to warn you. Marcus leaned forward. Ethan's not going to take this lying down. I know he signed the agreement, I know he did the press conference, but he's been calling me nonstop trying to find some way to fight back. Some loophole, some angle. He thinks if he can just discredit you, make you look like the villain, he can salvage something. There's nothing to salvage. The agreement is ironclad. I told him that. He's not listening. He's talking to other lawyers, shopping for someone who'll tell him what he wants to hear. Marcus stood. Just be careful. Ethan's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. After he left, Selena sat thinking about his warning. She'd known Ethan wouldn't go quietly, but she'd hoped the threat of prison would keep him in check. Apparently not. She called James. We need to increase security, for me and for Maya. Already done. Davis and Cho are on rotation for you, and I've got a team watching Maya's school. Good. Selena looked out her window at the city spread below. Somewhere down there, Ethan was plotting his next move, trying to find a way to hurt her the way she'd hurt him. Let him try. She'd spent 6 months planning her revenge. She could handle whatever desperate scheme he came up with. The week crawled by. Selena divided her time between the AGH office and emergency custody hearings for Maya. Ethan fought it, of course, claiming Selena was using her wealth to manipulate the court. But the judge took one look at the circumstances. Ethan's house being sold, his financial instability, the criminal investigation, and awarded Selena temporary primary custody pending a full hearing in 3 months. Maya cried when she heard. Relief, mostly, mixed with guilt over being relieved. She was still processing her feelings about her father, swinging between anger and sadness sometimes within the same hour. Brittany Monroe gave an exclusive interview to a morning show, crying photogenic tears while explaining that she'd had no idea about Ethan's crimes and felt deeply betrayed by his lies. She'd already returned the engagement ring and moved back in with her parents. The whole thing reeked of image rehabilitation, but the public ate it up. Ethan's second press conference came on Friday. This one was angrier, less scripted. He claimed Selena had entrapped him, that the divorce had been a setup designed to steal his company. His new lawyer, some bottom feeder who specialized in desperate clients, stood next to him nodding along. She manipulated me, Ethan said, his voice shaking with rage. She lied about her assets, she hid her wealth, and she used the divorce to position herself to destroy everything I'd built. This isn't justice, it's vendetta. The reporter asked, but didn't you misappropriate client funds? Isn't that what started all of this? I made some accounting errors, yes, but nothing criminal, nothing that warranted this level of retaliation. Ethan was red-faced now, spittle flying. She wanted revenge because I moved on with Brittany, because I was happy and she couldn't stand it. So she manufactured this entire crisis to ruin me. Selena watched the press conference with James and Chen Wei in her office. When it ended, James muted the sound. He's not helping himself, he said. No, but he might help us. Selena pulled up her email. I just got confirmation from the FBI. They're moving forward with charges, securities fraud, wire fraud, possibly money laundering. Ethan's rant about accounting errors just gave them more ammunition. Chen Wei closed her laptop. When will they arrest him? Next week, probably. They're building the case carefully. Selena felt a strange hollowness at the thought. She'd wanted Ethan to face consequences, wanted him prosecuted, but actually seeing it happen was different than planning it. Maya wandered in from the outer office where she'd been doing homework. Was that Dad on TV again? Yeah. He sounded crazy. He sounded desperate, Selena corrected. There's a difference. Is he going to jail? Selena looked at Maya's face, trying to gauge how much honesty the girl could handle right now. Probably. The FBI is building a case against him. Oh. Maya sat down in one of the chairs. When? I don't know exactly. Soon. Will I have to testify or anything? No, this isn't about you. This is about what he did with the company. Maya nodded slowly. Good, because I don't think I could do that. Look at him in court and tell everyone what he did. Even though I'm mad at him, he's still my dad. I know, sweetheart. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Maya said, do you think he'll go to prison for a long time? I don't know. It depends on a lot of factors. How much he cooperates, what charges they actually file, what kind of deal his lawyer can make. Would you be sad if he went to prison? Selena thought about it. Would she be sad? Or just nothing? I'd be sad for you, she said finally, because you'd lose more time with your father. But sad for him? No. He made his choices knowing they were wrong. He has to live with the consequences. That's what you keep saying, consequences. Maya picked at her thumbnail. But what about you? You lied too. Maybe not about money, but you lied about who you were, what you were doing. Don't you have consequences? It was a fair question. Selena had been so focused on Ethan's lies that she hadn't thought much about her own. My consequences are different, she said slowly. I lied to protect myself and to expose a crime. Ethan lied to commit crimes and hurt people. Intent matters. Does it? You still lied. You're right, I did. And maybe there will be consequences for that too. Maybe people won't trust me. Maybe the business community will see me as manipulative or vindictive. Maybe I'll look back in 10 years and regret how I handled all of this. Selena met Maya's eyes. But right now, today, I don't regret it. I'd do it all again to get you back. Maya's expression softened. Even if it meant destroying Dad? Even then. The girl stood and came around the desk to hug Selena. I'm glad you fought for me, even if the way you did it was kind of scary. Kind of scary? Okay, really scary. You're like a movie villain who turns out to be the hero. Selena laughed despite herself. I'll take that. That weekend, the house sold. Ethan had 48 hours to clear out his possessions before the new owners took possession. Selena offered to help, but Maya said she wanted to do it herself. So they went together on Saturday morning, Selena waiting in the car while Maya went inside to pack up her things. She came out 2 hours later with 3 boxes and red eyes. He wasn't there, she said, as Selena helped load the boxes into the trunk. All his stuff is gone already, like he couldn't stand to be there anymore. They drove back to the penthouse in silence. Maya went to her room and didn't come out for the rest of the day. Sunday brought more news. The FBI had arrested Ethan early that morning at whatever short-term rental he'd been staying in. He'd been processed, arraigned, and released on bond pending trial. The charges were extensive, 23 counts including securities fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. He was looking at up to 20 years if convicted on all counts. The news showed footage of him leaving the courthouse, Marcus Chen at his side looking grim. Ethan didn't make a statement this time, just put his head down and hurried to a waiting car. Selena felt that hollow numbness again. This was what she'd wanted. Ethan arrested, charged, facing real consequences. So why did it feel so empty? Maya came into the living room where Selena was watching the news. He got arrested. I saw. Are you happy? I don't know what I am. Maya curled up on the couch next to her. Is it okay if I call him? Just to make sure he's okay? Of course it's okay. He's your father. You don't need my permission to talk to him. I kind of feel like I do. Like I'm betraying you if I'm nice to him. Maya, listen to me. Selena turned to face her fully. I don't want you to choose between us. I know that's what this whole situation has been about. Him trying to make you choose him, me fighting to get you back. But you don't have to pick a side. You're allowed to love us both, even if we hate each other. Do you hate him? Selena thought about it. Did she hate Ethan? Or was it something more complicated than that? I hate what he did, she said. I hate that he cheated and lied and stole. I hate that he tried to turn you against me. But him as a person? I think I just don't feel much of anything anymore. He's like a stranger who happens to share history with me. That's sad. Yeah, it is. Maya called Ethan that night. Selena gave her privacy, but she could hear the murmur of Maya's voice through the closed bedroom door. The conversation lasted maybe 15 minutes, and when Maya emerged, her eyes were dry, but her expression was troubled. He says he's innocent, that he's going to fight the charges and prove you set him up. He can say whatever he wants. The evidence speaks for itself. He also said he's sorry. For everything. For lying to me about you, for letting Brittany be mean, for messing everything up. Maya sat down at the kitchen table. I don't know if I believe him. You don't have to decide right now. People say a lot of things when they're facing prison time. Do you think he'll actually go to prison? Yes, the evidence is too strong. Best case, he pleads guilty and gets a reduced sentence. Worst case, he goes to trial and gets convicted on all counts. How long? 5 to 10 years probably. Maybe less with good behavior. Maya absorbed this. I'll be in my 20s when he gets out. Yeah, that's so weird. Like, he'll miss everything. My high school graduation, college, my whole life. I know. Is that wrong? That part of me thinks he deserves it. Selena pulled Maya into a hug. No, baby. It's not wrong. Your feelings are your feelings. You don't have to feel guilty for being angry at him. They stayed like that for a long time, Selena holding Maya while the girl cried for the father she'd lost and the normal life that was never coming back. 3 months later, Selena stood in front of a different building entirely, watching construction crews put the finishing touches on what would become the Ashford Foundation for Financial Independence. The space had been a shuttered bank branch in a neighborhood that had seen better days, but now it gleamed with fresh paint and new signage. Through the windows, she could see volunteers setting up desks and computers, preparing for the grand opening next week. Maya stood beside her, holding a tablet and checking items off a list. She'd insisted on helping with the foundation planning, throwing herself into the project with an intensity that worried Selena sometimes. But the therapist they'd been seeing, both together and separately, said it was healthy. Said Maya needed something constructive to focus on while she processed everything that had happened. The financial literacy workshop materials arrived, Maya said, scrolling through her tablet, and the lawyer confirmed that we have 5 pro bono attorneys signed up to help with divorce cases and asset protection. Good. Selena watched a worker hang the last letter of the foundation's name. What about counselors? 3 therapists, all specialized in trauma from financial abuse. They start next month. Maya looked up from her tablet. Do you think people will actually come? Like, will they trust us? Some will, some won't. But the ones who need it most will find us. Selena put her arm around Maya's shoulders. That's all we can ask for. The foundation had been Selena's idea, born from late-night thoughts about what to do with the money she'd recovered from Ethan's failed empire. She'd sold the house, liquidated his personal assets, and added it all to the $42 million she'd restored to client accounts. But there'd been money left over. Funds from the company itself, from selling off equipment and intellectual property and settling various business debts. $2.3 million that had nowhere to go. She could have kept it, added it to AGH's portfolio, invested it, made it grow. But every time she thought about it, she saw the faces of women like her, women trapped in marriages with men who controlled all the money, who used financial dependence as a weapon, who made leaving seem impossible. So she'd created something else instead. The foundation would offer free financial planning services, legal advice, emergency grants to help women leave abusive situations, and educational programs teaching everything from basic budgeting to investment strategies. It would be a place where women could learn to build their own empires, one balance sheet at a time. James appeared from inside the building, hard hat slightly crooked on his head. Inspector signed off on everything. We're officially ready to open. Next Tuesday, right? Maya checked her tablet again. 10 a.m. ribbon cutting, then open house until 4. That's the plan. We've got about 60 people confirmed for the opening, plus local press. James looked at Selena. You sure you want to do this? The publicity, the questions about Ethan, all of it? I'm sure. Selena had thought about this a lot. The foundation would inevitably draw comparisons to what had happened with Ethan, would invite commentary about whether she was trying to buy redemption or public goodwill. She didn't care anymore. The work mattered more than the optics. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out and saw a message from Patricia Reeves. Ethan's pleading guilty. Sentencing hearing is set for next month. Selena stared at the message for a long moment before showing it to Maya. The girl read it twice. He's really doing it? Not going to trial? Looks like it. How long do you think he'll get? Depends on the judge. His lawyer's probably arguing for minimum security, reduced sentence because he's cooperating and taking responsibility. Selena pocketed her phone. But with 23 counts, even pleading guilty, he's looking at 5 to 7 years. Maya was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, will you go to the sentencing hearing? Do you want me to? I don't know. Maybe? Maya bit her lip. I know I should probably be there, support him or whatever, but I don't know if I can look at him without getting angry all over again. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for, and if you do want to go, I'll be there with you. Bopi. They'd been doing this dance for 3 months now, Maya trying to figure out her relationship with her father while he sat in a minimum security facility awaiting trial. Or awaiting sentencing, apparently. She'd visited him twice, both times coming home quiet and sad in a way that made Selena's chest ache. Ethan had tried to reach out to Selena a few times through his lawyer, apologizing, asking for a chance to talk, claiming he wanted to make things right between them for Maya's sake. Selena had declined every time. There was nothing left to say. The week before the foundation's opening, Selena got a call from Douglas Whitmore. "I have a proposition for you," he said without preamble. "A group of us, investors who were clients of Vail Financial Group, have been talking. We want to invest in Ashford Global Holdings." Selena leaned back in her office chair. "A GH isn't taking new investors right now. We're restructuring after the acquisition." "I know, but we think you're going to be one of the most important players in the market over the next decade, and we want to be part of that. We're talking about a combined investment of over $200 million. $200 million. Enough to expand significantly, to take on bigger projects, to make AGH a major force instead of just a successful boutique firm." "Why?" Selena asked. "Why would you want to invest with me after watching what I did to Ethan?" "Because you did it methodically, legally, and you made sure the innocent people got their money back." Douglas's voice was frank. "You're ruthless when you need to be, but you're also ethical. That's a rare combination. Plus, your returns in the 6 months since you took full control of your grandfather's trust have been extraordinary. You turned $400 million into $3 billion. We want to be part of whatever you do next." Selena thought about it. More capital meant more opportunity, but it also meant more responsibility, more people counting on her decisions. "I'll think about it," she said. "Let me talk to my team." After she hung up, she sat staring out her window at the Chicago skyline. 6 months ago, she'd been signing divorce papers and pretending to be broke. Now she was fielding $200 million investment offers and opening a foundation in her name. The speed of the change still made her dizzy sometimes. Chenwei knocked on her doorframe. "Got a minute?" "Sure." The CFO came in and set her laptop on Selena's desk, turning it so they could both see the screen. "Final numbers from the Vail acquisition. Everything's settled, all accounts restored, all employees who are staying have signed new contracts." Selena scanned the spreadsheet. Of the 37 employees, they'd kept 22. The other 15 had either been involved in the fraud or had chosen to leave rather than work for the company that had destroyed their boss. "What about the clients?" Selena asked. "How many stayed with us?" 212 out of 350. The rest moved their accounts to other firms. Chenwei pulled up another sheet. "But the ones who stayed represent about 60% of the total assets, so we didn't lose as much as it could have been." "That's better than expected. It helps that you made everyone whole immediately and were transparent about the restructuring. People appreciate honesty." Chenwei closed her laptop. "Douglas Whitmore called me too, about the investment opportunity." "What do you think?" "I think it's risky. Taking on that much new capital means taking on that much new responsibility. If we screw up, we're not just losing your money anymore." She paused. "But I also think we're ready. We've proven we can handle crisis management, we can absorb failing companies and turn them around, and we can maintain ethical standards even under pressure. That's exactly the kind of firm these investors want to back." "So you think we should take it?" "I think you should decide what you want AGH to be. A boutique firm managing your personal wealth, or something bigger?" Selena thought about the foundation, about the women who would walk through those doors looking for help and hope. Thought about Maya, watching to see what kind of example her mother figure would set. Thought about her grandfather, who'd built his fortune slowly and carefully and had trusted her to do something meaningful with it. "Something bigger," she said, "but not at the expense of doing it right. Then we take the investment, but on our terms. We maintain control, we set the ethical standards, and we walk away from any deal that compromises those standards. Even if it costs us money? Especially then. Money we can always make back. Reputation? Once that's gone, it's gone." Chenwei stood. "I'll draft the terms and send them to Whitmore's people." The foundation's opening was chaotic in the best way. More people showed up than they'd planned for, forcing volunteers to set up extra chairs and print more information packets. Local news crews filmed the ribbon cutting, and a reporter from the Tribune interviewed Selena about her motivations. Is this an attempt to rehabilitate your image after what happened with your ex-husband? The reporter asked. Selena had expected this question, had practiced her answer. This foundation isn't about my image. It's about helping women who find themselves in situations where they don't have financial independence or the knowledge to achieve it. If people want to judge my motivations, that's fine, but the work speaks for itself. Some people are calling you vindictive, saying you destroyed a man's life over a divorce. I didn't destroy Ethan's life. He did that himself by committing fraud and stealing from his clients. I just made sure he faced consequences. Selena kept her voice even. And yes, I did it in a way that was public and dramatic, but sometimes that's what it takes to make sure justice actually happens. Maya watched from the sidelines, pride evident on her face. She'd been nervous about the opening, worried about what people would say or think, but seeing the women who came through the doors, some nervous, some desperate, all of them hoping for something better, had shifted her perspective. This is really cool, she told Selena during a break in the chaos. Like, we're actually helping people. We are. And this is just the beginning. Jennifer Park showed up late in the afternoon, surprising Selena. They hadn't talked much since the engagement party disaster, just a few professional emails about the Vail account transition. This is impressive, Jennifer said, looking around at the bustling space. You've built something real here. Thank you for coming. I wanted to apologize for not seeing what Ethan was doing sooner, for not asking harder questions. Jennifer paused, and for judging you. When you accepted that settlement, I thought you were making a mistake. Turns out you were playing chess while the rest of us were playing checkers. I wasn't playing, Selena said. I was surviving. There's a difference. They talked for a while about the foundation, about AGH, about the state of the financial industry. Before she left, Jennifer handed Selena a business card. If you ever need investors or partnerships for the foundation, call me. This kind of work matters. The sentencing hearing came on a gray Thursday in March. Selena and Maya sat in the back of the courtroom, trying to be invisible. Ethan sat at the defendant's table with his lawyer, looking thinner than Selena remembered. The expensive suits were gone, replaced by a simple blazer that had probably come from a department store. The proceedings were quick and impersonal. The prosecutor read the charges. Ethan's lawyer argued for leniency, pointing out his client's cooperation, his guilty plea, his remorse. Ethan himself stood and made a brief statement. I take full responsibility for my actions, he said, his voice barely audible. I betrayed the trust of my clients, my employees, and most importantly, my daughter. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope that someday Maya can understand that I never meant to hurt her. Maya's hand found Selena's under the bench and squeezed hard. The judge was an older woman with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. She looked at Ethan over her reading glasses and spoke in a tone that suggested she'd heard thousands of similar apologies and believed approximately none of them. Mr. Vail, you stole $42 million from people who trusted you. You falsified documents, lied to regulators, and built an entire business model on deception. Your cooperation with investigators and your guilty plea are noted, but they don't erase the harm you've caused. She sentenced him to 6 years in federal prison, eligible for parole after 4 with good behavior. Ethan's shoulders sagged when he heard the number. 6 years. Maya would be 19 when he got out, almost 20. He'd miss her entire high school experience, her graduation, her first years of college. As they led him away in handcuffs, he turned and looked directly at Maya. His eyes were wet, his expression broken. Maya stared back, and Selena couldn't read what was on her face. Anger, sadness, relief? Probably all three. In the hallway after, Maya was quiet. Selena didn't push her to talk, just walked beside her until they got to the car. Once they were inside with the doors closed, Maya finally spoke. I thought I'd feel different, like closure or something, but I just feel empty. That's normal. Is it? Because it sucks. Maya wiped her eyes. He's my dad, and he's going to prison for 6 years, and I should feel something more than just nothing. Give it time. Feelings don't work on a schedule. They drove home in silence. That night, Maya didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to process or analyze. She just wanted to watch bad reality TV and eat ice cream from the container. So that's what they did. The months that followed fell into a new kind of normal. Maya went back to school, though she'd switched to a private academy where the other students were either too polite or too wealthy to gossip about her father's crimes. She joined the debate team and discovered she was good at arguing, which surprised exactly no one. Selena split her time between running AGH and developing the foundation. The investment from Douglas Whitmore's group went through, bringing $215 million in new capital and opening up opportunities for larger acquisitions and development projects. A GH was no longer just a family office managing inherited wealth. It was becoming a real player in the investment world. The foundation served over 300 women in its first 6 months. Some just needed advice on how to open a bank account their husband didn't control. Others needed full legal representation to escape dangerous situations. A few went through the entire program and came out the other side with their own businesses, their own financial independence, their own futures. One woman, Sarah Chen, particularly stuck with Selena. She'd come in after her husband had drained their joint account and disappeared, leaving her with 2 kids and no way to pay rent. The foundation had helped her get an emergency loan, connected her with a lawyer to track down her husband's hidden assets, and enrolled her in the financial literacy program. 6 months later, Sarah had her own small business as a bookkeeper and had recovered most of the money her husband had taken. She'd come back to the foundation not for help, but to volunteer. "I want to help other women the way you helped me," she'd said. "I want them to know it's possible to come back from this." Those moments made everything worth it. The long hours, the public scrutiny, the constant questions about her motivations. When Selena saw women walk into the foundation broken and walk out months later with their heads high, she knew she'd made the right choice. Maya turned 14 in April. They celebrated with a small party at the penthouse. Just a few school friends and James and Chen Wei, who'd become something like honorary aunts. No extravagant venue, no dramatic reveals, just cake and presents and teenagers laughing too loud about inside jokes. Watching Maya blow out her candles, surrounded by friends who liked her for who she was rather than whose daughter she was, Selena felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Later, after the guests had left and the cleaning was done, Maya came to find Selena on the balcony. The city stretched out below them, lights twinkling in the darkness. "Thank you," Maya said, "for today, but also for everything, for fighting to get me back, for not giving up even when I was awful to you. You were never awful. You were hurt and confused." "I was kind of awful." Maya leaned against the railing. "I said some terrible things, called you names, accused you of abandoning us, and you just kept showing up anyway. Because you're my daughter. That doesn't change just because things get hard. I'm not technically your daughter, though. Like, legally, since you and Dad are divorced." "Maya." Selena turned to face her fully. "You are my daughter. Blood doesn't determine that. Love does. Time does. The fact that I chose you and you chose me, that determines it. Okay?" Maya nodded, tears starting. "Okay, but I have to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "Always." "Do you regret it? Any of it? The way you took Dad down, the public humiliation, all of it?" Selena thought about it. Did she regret anything? The question had been haunting her for months. "I regret that you had to see it," she said finally. "I regret that it happened at his engagement party where you were there to witness it. That part I would do differently if I could go back." She paused. "But exposing his crimes? Making sure he faced consequences? Getting you back? No, I don't regret any of that. Even though people call you vindictive and manipulative, people have called me worse things. I can live with it." What if Dad hadn't done anything wrong? What if he'd just been a normal guy who fell out of love with you? Would you have still tried to destroy him? It was a fair question, one Selena had asked herself more than once. "No," she said. "If he'd just fallen out of love, if he'd just wanted a divorce and been honest about it, I would have been hurt, but I would have walked away. The revenge wasn't about him leaving me. It was about him committing crimes, stealing from people, and then trying to paint me as the villain when I wouldn't quietly disappear. So it was about justice. It was about justice, and yes, also about revenge. Both can be true at the same time." Maya considered this. "I think I'm okay with that. I mean, it's messy and complicated and probably not what you're supposed to do. But it's honest. And after all of Dad's lies, I appreciate honest." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the city. Somewhere out there, Ethan was in a federal facility, serving time for crimes he'd finally admitted to. Somewhere out there, women were building new lives with help from the Foundation. Somewhere out there, the world was spinning on, indifferent to their small drama. But here, on this balcony, a mother and daughter who'd chosen each other were finally at peace. A year after the engagement party disaster, Selena stood in the same courtroom where she'd signed her divorce papers. But this time, she wasn't there to lose something. She was there to gain everything. The judge, a different one this time, younger, with kind eyes, looked over the adoption papers with careful attention. Maya sat beside Selena, nervous and excited in equal measure. "Ms. Ashford," the judge said, "you understand that by adopting Maya, you're taking on full legal responsibility for her welfare? That this isn't contingent on your relationship with her father or his consent?" "I understand, Your Honor." "And Maya, you understand that this is permanent, that Selena will legally be your parent with all the rights and responsibilities that entails?" "Yes, Your Honor." Maya's voice was steady, sure. Ethan had signed the consent forms from prison. His lawyer had delivered them with a note that Selena had read once and then burned. It said simply, "Take care of her. You always did better at that than me anyway." The judge signed the papers. Just like that, with a few strokes of a pen, Maya was officially Selena's daughter, not stepdaughter, not former stepdaughter, not some undefined relationship that didn't have a name. Just daughter. They celebrated at Maya's favorite restaurant, just the two of them. No fanfare, no press, no drama. Just a quiet dinner where they talked about everything and nothing. "Do I call you Mom now?" Maya asked over dessert. "Like, legally?" "You can call me whatever feels right. Selena feels weird now, but Mom also feels weird after calling you Selena for so long." Maya thought about it. "Can I call you both, like Mom when it matters and Selena when we're just hanging out? That works for me." Later, standing in Maya's room, helping her get ready for bed, even though she was 14 and perfectly capable of doing it herself, Selena felt the weight of everything that had happened over the past year settling into something like acceptance. She'd destroyed her ex-husband's life. She'd exposed his crimes and made sure he went to prison. She'd taken his company and his reputation and left him with nothing, and she'd do it all again in a heartbeat, because the alternative was letting him get away with it. Letting him continue hurting people, stealing money, building his empire on lies while she quietly faded into obscurity. The alternative was teaching Maya that some people were above consequences, that power and charm could outweigh ethics and truth. No. What she'd done was messy and complicated and probably not admirable by any traditional standard, but it was necessary. 2 years after the engagement party, Selena got a letter from Ethan. It was forwarded through his lawyer with instructions that she didn't have to read it if she didn't want to. She almost threw it away unopened. Almost. But curiosity won. She waited until Maya was at school, poured herself coffee, and sat down at the kitchen table to read what her ex-husband had to say after 2 years of silence. The letter was surprisingly honest. No excuses, no attempts to rewrite history. Just acknowledgement of what he'd done and the harm he'd caused. He wrote about prison, about the therapy he was doing, about coming to terms with the person he'd become. He wrote about missing Maya, about the guilt of knowing he'd missed so much of her life. He wrote about understanding, finally, why Selena had done what she'd done. The last paragraph made her throat tight. "I know you'll never forgive me, and I'm not asking you to, but I want you to know that you were right. About all of it. I was arrogant and cruel, and I destroyed good things because I couldn't see past my own ego. You didn't destroy my life. I did that myself. You just made sure I couldn't destroy anyone else's in the process. Maya is lucky to have you. She always was, even when I couldn't see it. Thank you for loving her when I failed to. Thank you for being the parent I should have been. E." Selena set the letter down and stared at it for a long time. She didn't know how to feel about it. Relieved that he finally understood? Angry that it took prison for him to get there? Sad for the man he could have been if he'd made different choices? All of it. None of it. Everything was too complicated for simple emotions anymore. She filed the letter away in a drawer and didn't mention it to Maya. Maybe someday, when the girl was older and ready to hear it. Or maybe never. Some things didn't need to be shared. The foundation expanded to 3 locations over the following years. Demand was higher than they'd anticipated. And the model worked well enough that other cities started reaching out, asking how to replicate it. Selena hired a director to handle the day-to-day operations while she focused on AGH, which had grown into a firm managing over $5 billion in assets. Maya graduated high school at 16, skipping a grade because she was brilliant and bored and needed challenges. She got accepted to Harvard, Yale, and Stanford. She chose Stanford, partly for the computer science program, and partly because it was as far from Chicago as she could get without leaving the country. "I'm not running away," she told Selena while packing for college. "I just need to figure out who I am when I'm not the girl whose dad went to prison or the daughter of a billionaire CEO or any of those labels. I need to just be Maya for a while." "I get that, and I'm proud of you." Maya paused in her packing, holding a sweatshirt. "You know what's funny? People always ask me if I'm mad at you for what you did to Dad, and I tell them no, because he deserved it. But the truth is more complicated than that." "How so?" "I'm not mad at you, but I do think about it sometimes, about how calculated it all was. How you planned everything down to the last detail, how you knew exactly how much pain to cause for maximum impact." Maya folded the sweatshirt carefully. "It's kind of scary, honestly, knowing you're capable of that level of cold precision." Selena felt her stomach drop. "Does that change how you see me?" "No, but it makes me understand you better." Maya looked up. "You did what you thought you had to do to protect me and to make sure Dad faced consequences. I respect that, but it also taught me that the people we love are capable of really complicated things. That good people can do morally gray stuff and still be good people." "Is that okay, that I'm morally gray?" "Mom, everyone's morally gray. Anyone who claims otherwise is lying." Maya went back to packing. "You're just honest about it. That's what I appreciate." When Maya left for Stanford, Selena stood in the empty bedroom for a long time, remembering the 6-year-old who'd been scared to trust her, the 13-year-old who'd been poisoned against her, the 14-year-old who'd chosen her anyway. The penthouse felt too quiet without Maya's music and phone calls and constant teenage presence. Selena thought about getting a smaller place, something that didn't echo with emptiness. But she kept the penthouse. Maya would be home for holidays, for summers. She'd need her room. 5 years after the engagement party, Ethan was released on parole. He served 4 years instead of 6, got out for good behavior and completion of various rehabilitation programs. Maya went to meet him the day he got out, though she didn't invite Selena to come along. She came home that evening quiet and thoughtful. "How was it?" Selena asked. "Weird. He looks older and smaller somehow, like prison made him shrink." Maya sat down on the couch. "He's living in a halfway house, working as an accountant for a nonprofit, making like $30,000 a year. Can you imagine? He used to spend more than that on watches." "How do you feel about it?" "Sad, mostly. Not for him, really, but for what could have been different if he'd made better choices." Maya pulled her knees up to her chest. "He asked about you, whether you were happy." "What did you tell him?" "I said you were. And you are, right? Happy?" Selena thought about it. Was she happy? Her company was thriving. Her foundation was helping hundreds of women. Her daughter had grown into an incredible person. She'd built something real and meaningful from the ashes of her marriage. But happy? That was harder to quantify. "I'm content," she said finally. "I'm proud of what we've built. I don't regret my choices, even the hard ones. That's a kind of happiness, I think." "But you're alone. You haven't dated anyone since Dad. Don't you want that? Someone to share all this with?" "Maybe someday. Right now I'm okay on my own." Selena smiled. "Besides, I'm not alone. I have you. I'm at Stanford most of the year. Doesn't matter, you're still mine." 10 years after the engagement party that changed everything, Selena stood in front of a room full of women at the Foundation's anniversary gala. The organization had grown beyond anything she'd imagined. 12 locations across the country, thousands of women served, countless lives changed. She looked out at the crowd and saw Sarah Chen, the bookkeeper who'd been one of their first clients, now running her own successful firm. She saw Jennifer Park, who'd become a major donor and advocate. She saw dozens of women whose names she knew, whose stories she'd heard, who'd walked into the foundation broken and walked out whole. 10 years ago, Selena said into the microphone, I was sitting in a courtroom signing away my marriage and planning the most elaborate revenge scheme I could devise. I wanted to destroy the man who'd hurt me, and I wanted everyone to watch while I did it. The room was silent, hanging on her words. What I didn't realize then was that revenge, while satisfying, is ultimately empty, if that's all it is. The real victory wasn't in watching my ex-husband lose everything. It was in building something that mattered, something that would outlast the anger and the pain and the need to make him suffer. She gestured to the room around them. This foundation is that something. Every woman who walks through our doors, every life we help rebuild, every cycle of financial abuse we help break. That's the real revenge. Not against one man, but against a system that tells women they should be dependent, that they should stay small, that they should accept less than they deserve. The applause was thunderous. Maya, sitting in the front row, was crying and smiling at the same time. Later, after the speeches and the dinner and the networking, Selena found a quiet moment alone in the foundation's original location. The building had been renovated and expanded, but this room, the first one where they'd held that chaotic opening day, was preserved exactly as it had been. She stood looking at the pictures on the wall, photos of women who'd graduated from the program, of workshops and classes, of lives rebuilt from nothing. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya, who'd left early to catch a flight back to Stanford. "Proud of you, Mom, for everything, even the morally gray parts, especially those." Selena smiled and pocketed her phone. She'd destroyed Ethan Vale, took his company, his money, his reputation, and watched him go to prison for crimes he'd convinced himself were just aggressive business practices. She'd done it with cold precision and careful planning, and she'd never lost a single night's sleep over it. But that wasn't the part that mattered anymore. What mattered was that she'd taken the wreckage of that destruction and built something beautiful. She'd turned her grandfather's quiet fortune into an empire. She'd created a foundation that actually helped people, instead of just making rich donors feel good about themselves. She'd raised a daughter who was brilliant and kind and understood that the world wasn't black and white, that good people sometimes had to do hard things. Ethan had tried to leave her with nothing. Instead, she'd built everything. And yeah, maybe that made her vindictive. Maybe it made her ruthless. Maybe someday, someone would write a business school case study about the ethics of what she'd done and conclude that it was wrong, that revenge dressed up as justice was still just revenge. Selena didn't care. She'd won. Not just the battle, but the war. Not just against Ethan, but against everyone who'd ever underestimated a quiet woman in a plain coat. And the victory tasted exactly as sweet as she'd imagined it would. She turned off the lights in the old building and stepped out into the Chicago night. The city stretched out around her, full of possibility and promise, and women who needed help she could provide. Tomorrow, she'd go back to running AGH, making deals, building wealth. Next week, she'd visit Maya at Stanford, listen to her daughter complain about difficult professors and impossible workloads. Next month, she'd open another foundation location, help more women break free from financial prisons of someone else's making. But tonight, standing on the street where she'd first imagined what this foundation could be, Selena allowed herself one moment of pure, uncomplicated satisfaction. She'd started with nothing but a plan for revenge. She'd ended with an empire built on her own terms. And that, she thought, as she walked to where her car was waiting, was the best revenge of all.